and historian for our nation, as well as all of Treaty 4, Terrence Pelche.
Thank you. When we first started the meeting in 1993, I think that's about 30 years ago, 31 years ago. The reason that we started meeting in the city was because we were getting a land claim. And we were right in the early stages of it, and everybody wanted to know what it was about and to get a kind of an idea of what we were going to be looking at. And that was the Trade Land Entitlement Agreement. And we started out not knowing where anybody was. When we took our first group of people that we knew where their addresses were, there was only about 200 and some people. And we needed addresses for about 1,600 towards the end. So our first endeavor was to visit the cities, call everybody in, and start getting addresses from there and meeting everybody in person. And the first time I came out, we had just a little hall. I can't remember where that hall was. And I sat up in a little corner and I had a booth. And I sat there all day and people just came in and out and asked questions. And I remember the first one was Auntie Peggy came in, and she came in with her family and asked. I knew your brothers came in and asked them questions as well. So that was how we started. We went all across Canada. At the time, I had to keep track of the membership because we needed to know where the eligible voters were. And at that time, there was less than 1,800 people registered to the band that was total. By the time we finished the TLE a few years later, we had identified that there was about 1,600 eligible voters. Those are the ones over 18. And about that time, there was the new law called Bill 331, and people started coming back. And that was why we went out across Canada to find out where all of these people are. And they were scattered all across Canada. And so that was how we started. And I know when we go to the different cities now, or when band goes to different cities, there's a lot more people in those cities. And since that time, we've increased from 1,800 people up to about 4,500. We'll be approaching 4,500 with this land claim. What the band is doing here with Chief Erica is exactly the same thing that we did the first time around. I've worked for almost every chief in council since Terry LaValle, Chief Rook, Chief Grady, Chief Pat, Chief, can't remember who else, Gordy, whoever was there, and now Chief Erica. So I'm glad to be part of it, and we'll be looking at what are listening to some of the initiatives that the band has going. And I think that one of the ideas is that as we move into the future, at least I was hoping we could prepare our youth in the cities and on the reserve for what they're going to be facing. And I know that many of us, when we first came to the city, when we were young people, it was a very different world for us. And I'm glad, or at least happy to think that what our young ones will face now is they won't face that anymore, at least not the hardships that we had to go through and our parents had to go through and you went through as well. So with that, we're starting all over again with Chief Erica, and I'm really pleased to be a part of it. And whatever she says today, it's news to me just as much as it's news to you. So thank you. We'll talk to you a bit.
Thank you, Terrence. First of all, let's give a round of applause for the amazing cooks here at the Gathering Place. I hope they could hear that in the kitchen over there because they were cooking furiously when we went in. So also, again, I would like to thank the people here in person for your patience. There is a bit of a miscommunication, but like I said, I know that the food that we're eating is definitely going to make up for the wait, and I really appreciate the efforts of the Gathering Place. I'd like to acknowledge Nikki Nanipuish, who is actually Nikki Delorme, and she is one of our members here in Regina, but she works here at the Gathering Place for many, many years, and she's the one who ensured that everything is going smoothly here. So Nikki and her husband Terrence, please put up your hand. So, again, thank you for taking time out for the people online as well as for the people who are here. Thank you to the people who came up from the reserve. It was a beautiful drive this morning. I hope nobody got tickets. I know that was my main goal of the morning, was to get here without a speeding ticket, and the good Lord provided. So that was good. To go into why we're doing this. So April 24th, at the end of the month, or at the end of the evening at 8:30, that's when your new council, our new council, was elected for a 4-year term. And our membership chose, and I really want to say that chose very wisely, in the sense of a group of people who are there around the table that have amazing hearts, skills, knowledge, common sense, love for the people, love for their families, love for our community, love for our nation. We have spent much of the first year getting to know each other, getting to know each other's strengths, our challenges, how we work, how we think. And the other thing that I'm very proud, or what I'm very proud to say on behalf of our team, is that you elected a working council. You elected a group of people who every day, even on weekends, are not trying to get out of work or meetings. Most days, at least 5 days out of the week, most of the time 7. We're working from 9 or 10 in the morning all the way to 9 or 10 in the evening, on either together with the issues that are brought to us, or we're working in the different areas of responsibility that we have in the evenings, or meeting with membership in the evenings. A lot of times, in fact, most of the time, we're the last ones out of the band office. And, it's because we just have so much that we're talking about, as well as the fact that while we were campaigning, what we heard from the people, both those who live on reserve as well as those that don't live on the reserve, is there were key components that were told to all of us. And when we talked with each other, and we discussed what brought us here, what made us choose to run, and what we heard from the people, basically what we heard is we as membership, because I say that it doesn't matter if we're elected right now, we're first and foremost members. And we wanted unity. We wanted progress. We wanted a council that worked together and that respected each other. We wanted to hear more about what was happening. We also wanted to be a part of it. So many of our incredible over 4,500 members, the largest membership in all of Treaty 4. We have such a diverse group of experts, knowledge keepers, people with lived experience, not only on reserve or in Regina, not only in Saskatchewan, but all across Canada, what is now Canada, and even all across the globe. And our membership want to give back. Our membership want to be part of it. Our membership is they're not calling us to say, what can you give us? What can you give us? Can I borrow $20? Can I borrow? I mean, there's some of that sometimes. Let's not take off, or let's take off the rose-colored glasses. But overall, when I talk to other leadership, when I talk to other chiefs, other councils, they're besieged by people wanting, and that dependence. And what I have to say is that that's our people. We have people who struggle in different ways, all the ways. We have people who, that are going through bad times, but we also have such a giving and loving membership. And it's about I may need help, but I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for a hand up because I'm struggling. And also, you know, that it's not about only what I can get. I might be struggling right now, but also we've had people that, because we've all struggled. I mean, let's be for real. We've all struggled. And especially when whether you live on reserve or you live off reserve, most of my experience has been off reserve, and the struggle is real. The struggle is especially real right now. Before I became chief, I actually ran this organization that we're standing here on, and we served 15,000 of our urban membership, regardless of what nation or tribe that you're from. And I have to say, it was the hardest pre-pandemic, moving into pandemic and post-pandemic. It's the hardest I've ever seen any of us as indigenous people, as Cowessess people, struggle off reserve. Rent is high, utilities are high, jobs, you know, are it's very hard sometimes when we're dealing with mental health and addictions and other aspects in order to get into that. The reality is, when it comes to training and education, you know, that if you're lucky enough to get that money for training and education, it's not enough to sustain you, let alone talk about if you have kids and trying to put them in sports, you know, like it's a struggle. And so knowing this, knowing the reality, knowing as we move forward, and as we talk about livelihood, as we talk about CVL, it's truly what is going to be the cornerstone of our ability, our governance table, as well as all of the systems that we are creating, that will be the cornerstone and the keystone for us to be able to provide programs and services, especially for those who are off reserve. So just hold on. Apparently I have a dry throat today. And so as we looked at that, much of our first year in working together was learning, listening, learning, yes, putting together and outing the fires that have come up. And there were a lot of fires to out, you know, dealing with certain aspects of what was working and what hasn't been working for Cowessess, doing an analysis of exactly where things are at right now, and then also realizing that we are now in 2024, and we have a significant, we're so proud to be the last of people who are still alive and those people that have gone on in order to settle our 1907 claim. And we will be discussing the claims next Sunday and doing more of a deep dive into it. But what I can tell you is this: time is of the essence for us right now to know where we're at, to fix what we need to fix as in strengthen through lessons learned, and get the systems ready that are not only not working right now, but that will be able to withstand an incredible influx of money that Cowessess has never seen before. That is what we anticipate, that we, for the first time in all of our existence as Cowessess Nation, will have an influx of money that if we are not prepared for, that if we do not plan for, that if we are not smart and strategic, if we do not look at how we're going to benefit the people directly, which may be through a personal payout, as well as collectively, which would be those investments and the drawdowns of the investments, which translate into programs and services for both on and off reserve, then we're going to not be ready and not be able to do what we need to do in the best way that our ancestors, what they lost. It's their loss. And then after that, our generational loss for what was wrongly taken away from them in that 1907. And so the best way for us to honor all of our families and all of us here, our kin, regardless of what our last name is, the best way that we can honor what they went through with starving and having to ask the Indian agent everything, having to take that Indian agent take away everything from them, the priests coming to take their children away from them, destroying our family systems, our kids not knowing their kids not knowing their siblings, their grandparents, the destruction of the family system, the destruction of our economic system. That's what they suffered, but they persevered, and they loved us so much that here we are today. And so that is the weight your council, us as council, as we sit around that table, we hold our ancestors in our heart, but we also hold our children, our grandchildren, our chapans, the ones yet to be born, as our North Star, so that they don't have to go through some of the stuff that even we have gone through, the stuff that we wish that we didn't, but I mean, let's be for real. All of us have passed on to our children and grandchildren because of how we were brought up. Our hope is to set that foundation through the best utilization of that financial to address those other areas so that our people who are living right now, especially our seniors, those who are differently abled, our students, all those who need that hand up, both on the ones that are living on reserve as well as off reserve, that we have that opportunity to do better for our families in all ways. And that is sovereignty. And that's what we're really talking about here. We're not talking, we're beyond as people thinking about the Indian Act. We know the damage that it's done. We know that it's a genocidal policy for us. We live it every day, that effect of that Indian Act. But that's them on their side. On our side, it's how do we reclaim that Mio Pamatsuan, that good life that Creator meant for all of us, regardless of where we live, because we were born. Creator's law is, and our inherent right is that we were born to have our right to raise our children, the right to that livelihood, the right to clean waters and air and all the things that Creator has given us and provided to us so that we could carry on as human beings. And then after that, our ancestors, and it's going to be 150 years this year for Treaty 4, were so wise and loved us so much that they made that covenant with the newcomers as well as with Creator in order for them to plan for us to have those treaty rights so that we would always, as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the rivers flow. By the way, what is real, just as an aside, and I'll probably get off my spiel, but as an aside, I was told by an elder last week that for a period of maybe about 3 hours, our treaty rights were actually diminished because the sun wasn't shining during that eclipse. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. But then our treaty rights came back so that no matter what, even within that, I shouldn't say they came back, but that they were strengthened once again. And if you notice in that time, the temperature decreased incredibly. during that time that the sun was gone. So in using, going back, sorry, I'm the Cliff Clavin of all things. I like those little facts. And we all know who's old here, if you know who Cliff Clavin is here. And so from that point of treaty, our ancestors loved us so much that is what they foresaw for us. Now, the government, what they did was they saw it through policy, public policy. They saw it through putting together that public policy, such as the Indian Act and different types of, and bringing in the church, bringing in what academically is called state, but it's the government. And then that's where we see the industrial school, the residential school, the day school, and then the band administered schools, and how they took that to destroyed our families, as well as the enfranchisement, where people, if you were a veteran or you decided that you wanted a job and you wanted to live off the reserve, then you signed away your status under duress. That card does not make us Indian, does not make us who we are. That's their definition. Because as long as we have a drop of Cowessess blood in us, we are related and we are kin, regardless of what the government says that we are. And that really matters for us that have not had that opportunity to live on reserve. I'm one of those people that was lucky enough that I had both experiences, but mostly off reserve. And my mom and dad moved off reserve for better opportunity. My brother and I lived, other than when my mom taught, we lived off reserve. My children live off reserve. And now my grandson lives off reserve. Right there, 4 generations. Where is that connection? How do we strengthen that connection? Not only back to our homelands, but also to who we are. Because like I said, it doesn't matter what the government says, or even what we have been trained to think, that there's such a disconnect between on and off reserve. At the end of the day, because of those portability of treaty rights and who we are as children born from Creator, we are all the same in that love that Creator had for us. And so it's about breaking down those stereotypes, even amongst our own thinking, that thinking that was given to us about on reserve, off reserve, and to start thinking in the way that is a loving, kind, gentle way with each other. And, you know, until I moved back, until I became chief and I moved back and I was sitting on my Mushum's land, my Mushum, who is a World War II veteran, and my Kokum, who also her family was from Cowessess as well, from the Lavalleys and the Laras. That was when it was my realization about how important that land is. Even if my children and grandchildren never live there, they need that connection. We need that connection, all of us. And our on-reserve people are so important. They are the key of holding who we are as Cowessess people. They are the ones who are protecting our lands for us on a day-by-day basis. They are the ones that are ensuring that our land is safe for us who live off reserve. Because it was Pierre Elliott Trudeau that said, once you lose your land and your language, then you are and your culture, then you are no longer Indian, he said. And our ones that are living on reserve are the hub of who we are, because they're holding that land for us, and they're the stronghold, the hub of who we are. On the reserve, we get money that is only probably 95 to 99% of the money we receive, it's probably closer to 99%, are meant only for those services and programs that are on reserve. The criteria, the eligibility criteria, is to provide programs and services for those who are on reserve. And the fact of the matter is, those programs and services are underfunded or not funded at the levels that are required for even our on reserve to live that mio pamatswin, that good life. They are at poverty levels, if we're lucky. The wages of our people who work for the band are at poverty level because that is what is given to us by the government to fill those positions. It is only through own source revenue that we are able to look at providing opportunity and programs and services for those who don't live on reserve. And that's what's so important about our discussion today. Because on one level, it's the sovereignty, which is the overarching reason why we're here, our gold and North Star that we're looking at in getting. And when we talk about sovereignty, it's about holding a government accountable to those treaty responsibilities that they have. But in the meantime, having a sovereign nation, a true sovereign nation with a strong economic base where we don't have to rely on them and what they consider are their treaty obligations to us. That we are moving towards not what the government believes that we need, but what Creator has meant for us with that mio pamatswin, that good life. And that's what your council is working towards now. It's about not dividing us. It's about understanding each other in a different way. It's about understanding the uniqueness of all of us, regardless of where we live, regardless if we are of the darkest skin and the blackest hair, or if we have bright blue or green eyes and pale skin and blonde hair. It doesn't matter what any of that is, because Cowessess blood runs through our veins. Our kinship runs through our veins, and that's what holds us together. So the talk today is about where we're at and what we have learned, as well as the strategy in how we're looking at that sovereignty. I am so humbled and overwhelmed sometimes when I'm praying. You know, it overwhelms me as I'm praying about, when I think about our ancestors and what they had to go through in order for us today to plan for prosperity, to plan for us to get to sovereignty, that freedom that they never had, that they couldn't even leave the reserve unless they signed away who they were. And that is our goal. That is our goal with our livelihood and all of the other areas, is that collective bounty, but it's also providing opportunity for that individual ability to provide for your own family through proper education and training funding, through assisting with jobs, having the opportunity for you all to come home, for all of us to go home if we choose to live there. But if we don't, that's okay too, because we know that when we walk on our homelands, that they're well taken care of. The people are well taken care of. And you are welcomed. We are all welcomed with a smile and asked who you are. And we go down the kinship line and you feel 100% welcomed when you come onto our nation. As an off-reserve member for most of my life, I have to say I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that through the colonization of how we were brought up. I felt, people stared at me when I would go home. And, then when they would recognize me as an adult, then, you move forward. Many people don't even have that. The ones that live in Vancouver and different places have that connection to our home. So our values and our commitment is to bring that back, to bring that no matter where you live, it's not, all of us are proud. All of us are proud to be Cowessess members. But the next question is, why are you proud to be a Cowessess member? And our job is to give reason to that and to communicate the reason why we're proud to be Cowessess members. Because we take care of each other, because we love each other, because we have opportunity to do what we need to do for our children and our grandchildren, so that we have every year we have less people suffering, until maybe one day there's a day, and I hope it's in my lifetime, but maybe it won't be, that none of us suffer and our kids are outside the child welfare system, and every child that is born into a loving, safe, non-addicted, functional home where they will continue with that love and have that opportunity for good education, good child rearing, all of those things. So this is, in a nutshell, what we have been working on in the past year as your council. And these series of, we're nuts, okay, like let's just, and probably because we sit there for, like I said, 5 days at least together. And by the way, we do drive each other nuts sometimes as well. I just have to say that. And it's about that opportunity. And I shouldn't sideline myself with my lame jokes that I think are funny that nobody laughs at. Finally, somebody said finally. Somebody said the other day, we don't see the chief laugh very much. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, I've always been a serious person, you know what I mean? But I have so many jokes inside me, and I'm not even, us Indian women, we're kind of told that we have resting, what face, I kind of have that a little bit. So I'm not one to sit there and laugh around and joke around about things, because we have people dying. We have people dying, especially in our urban areas, through mental health, addictions, suicide completions. I like a good joke, and I love sitting in there. But when I'm in my role as chief, that responsibility is so heavy on my shoulders, because I know that the decisions that we make or don't make could possibly have an effect on somebody's life. And so the joking time is over. The laughing around time is over. It's about time that we got serious, because our kids deserve it. Those ones that are yet unborn deserve every bit of our brains and our hearts and our minds and our prayers in order to move forward. And during this year that we've been sitting together, in all of the areas that we looked at, there was some there's incredible strengths, because we have smart people. We have smart past leadership. We have leadership that in the past gave their heart and soul to their positions. But it's 2024. We got in on 2023. It's 2024. And not only are we looking at where the band is, like I said, we have to be forward thinking and think about those systems that need to be created so that we're not in the same position as what our TLE is in right now in this, and it's not that it's such a bad position, but I'm talking about how many years later, 96 to now, how many years is that? Where we still have acres that we can buy, but we don't have the money to buy those acres. We don't want to be in that position in 20 years. We want to be in a position where we set up wealth creation so well that that principle is never touched, that we receive in our 1907, as well as other claims that we may proceed with, which is going to be next Sunday's talk, that we never touch that principle and we continue to reinvest and reinvest and reinvest, so that especially our ones that don't live on reserve have, I shouldn't say especially, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in wealth investment on our reserve as well. Our people, our land keepers deserve that. But also, just because we don't live on the reserve, some of us, does not mean that we don't deserve the same equity of consideration for housing, education, training, access to mental health and addiction supports, all the things that we need for our children to get into those sports, like I said, for our seniors to have accessible homes, to have accessible bathrooms, to have that opportunity. That's all within our grasp. It is actually within our grasp for this to happen. But we have to do it right. We have to do it properly. We have to do it smartly. We have to do it strategically. We have to do it together. And the only way that we can do it is through that strong economic base. Because if we squander the money, if we don't plan for our money, if we don't, first of all, if we don't put our operations so that it could handle the pressure of that kind of influx of money, if we also don't plan for that influx of money and exactly how it's going to be invested and reinvested, if we also from that point don't plan strategically how band members are going to benefit both directly and indirectly, if we don't think about exactly that in 20 years, we shouldn't have less money, we should have more money. Because Cowessess is now in the driver's seat, as well as we have smart, educated people, not only at the council table, but the people, our own people that are guiding this, the people that we're bringing in. And what we're doing is putting together that plan, whereas within 10 years, we're hoping that Cowessess will be sovereign in an economic sense, whereas we will still hold the government accountable for the money that they need to provide to us through those treaty rights, but we will not be held under duress to sign those contribution agreements for those, because we will have enough money to live and to be able to provide those services without the government money. And that, members, that's what sovereignty is about. It's not a word to be played with lightly. It's not just a fancy word that we put out there. Sovereignty means we take care of ourselves and we don't need anybody else to take care of us. The government will always be there because we hold them accountable, but it's up to us to provide that economic base so that we can hold them more accountable and we can be more accountable to each other, and especially all of our ventures that we have, economic-wise and otherwise. Oh. Oh, okay. So very quickly, because I've already spoken a lot about this, we are following under the Our theme, our goal as a council is Mio Pamatsuin. We come from our ancestors. They still live within us. Not only does their blood flow through our veins, but so does their knowledge. And it is up to us to be good stewards of all of this while we are still here. We retain our inherent and sovereign right to livelihood, including our ability to build, maintain, and grow our economic base. Our numbered treaties contain certain rights, obligations, and responsibilities by the Crown to not only support our inherent and sovereign right to livelihood and an economic base. Oh, I'm getting excited here. But also to enhance it. This was recognized as we transitioned from making a living and depending primarily on the buffalo to farming and agriculture, which we still have. We heard at one of our past chiefs, Gord, talk about that he has now come home and he's assisting us with the agriculture. Gord comes from a strong line of generational farmers that persevered and made an incredible grade of fields that was recognized all across Canada. And we are so proud because that was the same as many of our ancestors and our farmers as well. But now what that also means is moving beyond that farming and now agriculture and whatever form that we need to have in order to have that strong livelihood. As First Nations people, we always had economic systems and structures. Our primary domestic economic livelihood source was the buffalo. Further to that, we had trading partnerships with other tribes and nations across Turtle Island. On the plains, Cree, Saulteaux, and Nakota people belonged to what is known as the Iron Confederacy, which was an alliance based on military and, more importantly, economic prosperity. Cowessess specifically entered into farming and agriculture and developed a reputation for being among the best farmers. This practice continues to this day, and I truly invite everybody to listen. I can't remember when is our farming, is it next? 4C is, yes. The 25th. To participate on April 25th as well, as you could hear not only our history, but how we're moving forward in agriculture. Where we are today. So right now, okay. Oh, I'm going to go a little bit back and then we'll go forward into talking about our CVL board. So when we came on to council, and we started looking at how economic development was really perceived on our nation, and the systems that looked, or I guess controlled it, or that were the foundation of it. It didn't make a lot of sense. In the grand scheme of the world of making money, it didn't make a lot of sense. We had a CVL board, which is our board that, and our corporation that is meant to make us money. Other than farming and the leasehold and the lands that we get from the leases, which is own source revenue, we have the CVL board, and their sole purpose is to make money. That's their entire purpose, is to make us money. And that money is meant to go back into developing and growing CVL, but also a portion of that is meant to go back to the band in order for there to be own source revenue for our band members. Within that, we have economic development ventures that we're all proud of, that have been in our nation a long time, such as our golf course. We're all proud of our golf course. Many of us, that was our first job, right? Even those of us off the reserve, that was our first job. That was our ability to get that work ethic, to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning, to make sure that you had good customer service, that good relations with the neighbors as well as with our own members. Our gas and grocery 1 and 2. Now so we came in and we found that, first of all, we haven't made money in many, many, many years in our golf course. We also found out that it's been many, 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 many years that there's been a profit for Cowessess gas and grocery 1 and 2. And further to that, not only was it a situation of not breaking even, but in fact, it was the band that was offsetting the costs in order to even have those ventures continue on to provide services for our First Nation. These were supposed to be ventures that were to make us money in order for us to have the programs and services. That was one of the first red flags that we had. And then we looked at, well, why could that be? You know, changing markets and different types of external factors are always there. You know, but we also had to look at the fact that you know, maybe there was some management issues. Maybe that there wasn't any proper strategic planning. Maybe amongst the operations and the structures that are there, that they don't fit and they don't work for making money. Maybe it was that we're nostalgic about our first, what set us apart 25 years ago when we were the only game in town when it came to a gas station. We've heard from the members. Especially on reserve. Why is it $10 for a 4-liter jug of milk? We've heard from our members. Why is it that the store is closed and whether it's on or off reserve, and we don't know exactly when it's open? Why aren't there more band members working at our stores? We've heard it all, and even though you may not think that we've heard it, we have been listening, and we have been planning and putting forth the foundation of the strategies to address this so that we could look at education and training opportunities, advancements within our ACDEV structures, what we can do to involve or to improve the revenue generation into our golf course, what we can also do as the livelihood portion in working with our TLE band in ensuring that the lands that we've already purchased, that they have a strong business case with them so that we just don't have lands sitting there that are actually costing us money, because most of them are not reserve status yet. So we're still paying property taxes to either the cities or whatever municipalities that there are. There is lots of work, learning and work that we have had to look at in the past year. This has kept us up at night in thinking about how do we address what is going on now to meet what the members need while we are planning for the future. That's been our challenge. That's been our challenge as a council in looking at that. We are very happy to say that, well, first of all, I'll say we don't have it all figured out yet. I will tell you that right now, but we're getting there. We have identified the issues. We have identified the areas that we need to work on. We have identified the strengths, because we have some incredible strengths. We have an incredible CVL board of directors. And they have tried their best under what I would say as coming in as a business person and now as the chair of the CVL, is that when I look at our CVL board of directors, they have had incredible challenges in their professional knowledge with one hand tied behind their back in attempting to do the best that they can for us as Cowessess Nation. Now, us as a governance table, especially, we have to do our job to support not only our new CEO of CVL, but also the board of directors that are there so that they can utilize their knowledge that they have and truly jet us off into the future, because they deserve that as well. For our Livelihood committee members, we are so proud to have, of course, our committee members who have volunteered and are assisting us in putting together the policies and helping us with the strategic planning. Right now within the structure, it's very linear in all areas, and it's very much not of our Indigenous worldview. And there's a way for us to meld those, to be true to who we are as Cowessess people, but also to use that cunning that we were told through the treaties and that knowledge that we have. And so what we are looking at is, when I say we don't have it all figured out yet, we're putting together that structure where we're not only going to have CVL as just purely money making like what it was supposed to be, but also have a social enterprise structure within that as well, so that that social enterprise may be gas and grocery one, whereas we expect not to make, break even or a little bit of profit. We sure as heck don't want to lose money, but our main goal is to assist our members in being able to provide for their families. But when we look at our other economic development ventures that would sit with CVL, that their whole job is to make us money. And then we let them do their job because they have a strategy and they're moving forward with it. And that will be discussed in a little bit. Right now, I would like to introduce myself. I'm the chair of CVL board. Councillor Curtis, if you want to stand up. Thank you. And Jamie Leroy, our own Cowessess band member who sits on our board. Thank you, Jamie, for all of your hard work that you've done for CVL. Tony Baumgartner is there as well. So thank you, Tony. And we don't have here today, I don't know if we have them online, but we have Murray Westerland, who is a snowbird. I think he must be flying back up this way maybe after next week, after our last snowfall. Mary Weimer, as well as Robert Byers. For our CVL staff, we have CEO Jake Sinclair. And so Jake introduced himself as a George Gordon band member, but I want to delve into his history a little bit. That's on his. He comes from O'Soup's band. His history is that his family comes from O'Soup's band as well. So his kinship lines come straight to Cowessess. So he may be from George Gordon's. Ooh, no, I'm just kidding. But he has those same bloodlines that run through our veins. They run through his as well. He's also our First Nations person from us that is our CEO. So we're very glad to be able to announce that as well. We have the controller, Catherine Dalsgaard, bookkeeper, Robin Sangways. On mat leave right now is Kaylin Soto for the administrative support, and the business development director is vacant. But I'd also like to, she's not on here and she's not part of CVL staff, but we've just created a position that is the Chief Strategy Officer, and the successful person was Lucy Pelche. So she's coming on when, Melissa? May the 6th. And her first task will be working on the economic development stream in order to put together our economic development structure and work with Jake as well as Gary. And Gary is, I think we're going to go to that one next. Oh, no, we are not. Okay, so Gary Sparvier, he is our coordinator of economic development at the band. And him and Jake actually work together, and they work very well together. So it will be Lucy, Jake, and Gary that are really, as well as our director of governance, because we've also created a new unit. And the successful person for the director of governance, her name is Angela Desjardins. And so she's also a Cowessess band member. And they will be working together in order to put together that economic development structure in order for us to make the best decisions and the best wealth investment portfolios that we can, as well as to establish criteria about the ventures that we get into. But one thing that I don't want to say promise, but I can tell you that we are very deeply committed to as your council, as also, myself sitting as the chair, is that we are going to work hard on the ventures that we have right now to get them to the place of making money. And we will be very cautious and ensure they have sound business plans and practices behind them in order for us to move forward on any new business ventures that we have. Unfortunately, we've looked. That hasn't seemed to be quite the priority in the past, to have a business plan when we go into new ventures. So right now I would like to call up, if I can, our CEO Jake, as well as our board members and our councillors responsible for livelihood, and any of our livelihood committee members, please.
Yes, good. We're going to let these people get assembled. Remember to include your name in the visitors list. And we are going to have some
At
draws
this time,
later.
maybe, also, sorry, Terrence, let's do 5 minutes so that people could go to the bathroom before we start and have a smoke break.
Yes,
So
good
for-
idea.
Okay, like I said, we're going to go get on with the business of the day of some of the things that we found, as well as our plan moving forward. And I'm handing the mic over to Jake, and he will take this part on behalf of the CVL board.
Thank you very much. I'll pitch the introduction of the board first. No. Okay, perfect. All right. Very nice to meet everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Once again, I want to acknowledge the prayers and the food. That was wonderful food, soup and bannock. A little bit higher. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Tell me to speak up and feel free to interject at any time if you have a question during my presentation about some of the specifics. We could get into it. So a little bit about myself, first and foremost. Like Chief had said, I am a descendant of the Osoup family, and I am from George Gordon First Nation. I grew up in the community. I stayed there until I was 18 years old, and at the point of time, my parents always said that as soon as I turned 18, I had to get out, and so my 18th birthday, I actually got kicked out. So I stayed in Gordon's until then. A little bit about my history and my background. I have a degree and a master's. I'll be completing my master's degree here in June. And my first master's, I should say. I'm also going to be going for my second one. So I have a MBA and a BA from the University of Regina. I am a business owner. I have a couple businesses here in Regina that I'm pretty passive on. My background, my first job was at a gas station in the community of George Gordon. So I have the background of somebody who was a gas jockey and worked at the tills. I also have experience as well. One of my first jobs was being a ball picker on a golf course. So I grew up on a golf course. So having a little bit of history there. Um, I spent a number of years, probably about 10 years of experience with George Gordon Developments in some capacity or another. And I was a two-time board member and as well as a two-term board member for the TLE. And so I have a little bit of history working with TLE and an ECDEV board there as well. There's a poster that's just out here about a workforce development career fair. In 2015, I launched that program, and it's still successful today as they're doing career fairs. So a little bit about my background on being able to work with economic development and as well as have an understanding of the social impacts that are going to be within the community when it comes to employment and training. So a little bit about, I'm 6 months into the job, just over 6 months into the role. So I started on just after Labor Day weekend. And I was very eager and excited to hop on here. And there's been a lot of things that were quite eye-opening to myself on coming into the role. A lot of exciting things that we have on the future that we're going to be continuing to move forward. A little bit about, I'm going to give, did you guys want it? It's just because I think once I go through this, it's not gonna, did you guys? Yeah. So a little bit of, yeah. So I'm going to pass the mic on really quick to our CVL board members, and I'll just kind of let them talk a little bit about their experience before I kind of get into everything here.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, it's Jamie Leroy. Being a board member, I think I've only been on there for maybe a year, or has it been a year now? I can't remember how long. Time's flying by. But quickly, my background, I too have my master's in business admin, and I come from a long line of my career-wise, working not only in the corporate world, but also in education, although I'm not an educator by any means. And currently, I'm the indigenous advisor over at Rancherlo. So with being on the board of Cowessess Ventures, it's not only an honor, but it's also a humbling experience because I really truly believe that there is such huge potential. And for me to have that lens of not only being a board member, but also being a Cowessess member and also being a entrepreneur as well and having a company at one time. So having those three pieces and being able to have that lens to look at when we're having those conversations and collaborating on whatever the pieces in front of us, it's really humbling and exciting to be able to help provide some empowerment to Cowessess Ventures itself. And I truly believe, like I said before, that there's a huge potential for us to be able to continue on and further strengthen our nation in regards to economic development projects, I guess you could say. So with that, I'll thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm Tony Baumgartner. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in business administration from University of Regina. I spent most of my career working with the provincial government in the economic development portfolio. I started many years ago, in 1982, with forestry, and it's been a theme of mine ever since. I still do some consulting work for the forest sector in Prince Albert and Meadow Lake. Later in my career, I was the vice president for economic development for the Enterprise Saskatchewan organization, which was spun off as a Crown Corporation for government on economic development. I've worked on economic development almost my entire career, enjoy it very much. Love to see success stories. I was delighted about a year ago when I was asked to participate on the CVL board of directors. I'm hopeful that I can contribute something every time I meet with a group, and that we're advancing the goals of the organization to create wealth for the First Nation, the ownership of Cowessess Cowessess Ventures. With that, maybe I'll turn back to Jake or Curtis. Did you want to?
Okay. Thank you again. Thanks for the meal. Thanks for Chief's opening remarks and all that stuff. Yeah, no, I've just recently been appointed to the board, and I don't really have a business background, but growing up and all that stuff, it was kind of a passion to kind of be an entrepreneur and a business owner because you see it more and more now that indigenous people are coming out with their own companies, and whether it's clothing lines or to uh, huh? To plumb to be plumbers. Oh, I was like plum. I guess plumbers are shortly known as plums. But one of my passions when I was younger is like I was really into clothing and all that stuff, right? And I was thinking of trying to do a clothing line back when I was young with some friends, and we're just being kind of mischievous. And but then a clothing line came out called FUBU, which was for us by us. And my intentions and my friends' intentions were to start a clothing line called Phoebe, which is for indigenous by indigenous. No, but it's a great experience for me so far being able to sit with the CVL board because Jake brings so much experience, being so young. He's not just he's probably younger than myself, but he's very inspirational and really we really commend him coming on and has really started to open the doors and show us the way that CVL should have been going all the way through from when it started. And then the experience from Jamie and Tony, they have the background where I'm also learning off themselves. So even some of the stuff that I have to sign into and all that is above me, but I like it's all technical but I have kids that are in their 20s that still teach me how to run technical stuff. So I grew up in a day and age where we just had Nintendos and all that stuff. We didn't have cell phones like this and all that. We still had dial up. Yeah. I'm old. Honestly, I'm old, but I don't look it. I'm a mushroom. Yeah. But no, I appreciate getting the opportunity to sit on the board. It really helps me grow as also my role as a counselor for Cowessess First Nation too.
All right, so we'll do a little bit of a summary overview, and thank you very much to the board that we have here. And I don't too sure if any of our board members are online, but a little bit of the summary overview of what we'll be talking about today of the transition period of what myself stepping into the role and understanding what has been done in the past, and just to continue building moving forward. I've identified the 3 pillars of strength that I've seen that CVL had, a little bit of a background in renewables, as well as land development and business development. And from there, what my steps on what I was able to do within the short time is trying to set a path forward to work with Chief and Council, to work with TLE, and to work with all of the social enterprises within the nation, workforce development, labor force development, and just making sure that we're all working towards the same goal because there's strength in numbers. So within the transition stage, like I said, six months of being on the role, there's been a number of things that we've had to try to make repairs on, some quick patches and some analysis into some of the decisions that we're going to be doing moving forward. But at the same time too, is trying to make sure that we're setting the foundation for the next projects that are coming up. I want to go on to the next slide there. So a little bit, CVL is fairly new in its infancy. CVL first established in 2018. And since then, there's been the Cowessess project. It's overtaken the groundwork that has been done in the early 2000s for the Cowessess Wind Development Project as well. Cowessess gas stations 1 and 2. And then as well as there's I guess influence into some of the other projects in particular with working with economic development and so we're just trying to figure out on how we're going to be all working together. So Chief alluded to on some of the work that Gary and myself have been doing and trying to figure out on how best to navigate strengths from CVL to work with economic development and 4C Farms, for example, is that there's some work that CVL does that could benefit 4C Farms and vice versa. And so we're just going back and forth to see how that's going to look like. How do we make the most economic benefit? Because what we found is there's been a lot of opportunity for a lot of the projects that were put forward in the past, but we didn't fully monetize as much as we possibly could. And so we're just trying to identify those areas and try to see on where we could try to maximize opportunity in all projects moving forward. Cowessess Gas Station 1, we had a little bit, Chief kind of alluded to it, on stepping into the role and understanding it. We have $10 milk, $10, prices for milk that's $10 when milk is sold for $4 for a 4-liter jug in Regina. So why is it more than double the price in the community? And so what we did immediately is we signed an MOU and a working relationship with economic development, so that economic development can have more of a local presence in the community to make sure that whenever we find out that there's something that's going to be happening in the stores, that we could act right away. And so that was something that we've done right away, is having that working relationship with economic development and being able to leverage those resources. So within Cowessess Ventures, we don't have an HR department. And so trying to make sure that we handle things in good governance, we're leveraging the strengths of the nation. And so that was one thing that we set forth right away. Another thing that we noticed right away when we came in is that we haven't had an audit completed since 2021. And so that was very alarming. And so right away, we had to try to make sure to get our audits complete and make sure that they're not only complete, but they're going to be clean cut audits. And so that was something that we put precedence on trying to make sure that we're moving forward. There's been a lot of work done as well within Chief and Council on moving and renaming the Urban Indigenous Health Center to the Mio Pamatzawin Center of Excellence. And where CVL plays a role in there is that we're trying to make sure that we're also capturing as much economic opportunity as possible. Prior to this Chief and Council coming on, there was some deals that were done that weren't quite complete, but based on the understandings that we found is that some of the deals that were done were just a little bit too pricey, and we had to put a pause on it. And so a building of construction was being quoted then double what it's worth. And so using our in-house expertise and leaning on Councillor Brandon to say, well, why are these quotes so ridiculously high? How come we don't have any partnerships? And how come we don't have any people that are from Cowessess that are going to be working on these projects? And so we kind of put a pause to that and trying to make sure that we're going to be doing it right from the ground up and not just getting it done for the sake of getting it done and then having everybody benefit, whereas Cowessess members at the end of the day will not be benefiting as much as possible. So we took a step towards that, as well as the Albert Street property. And so where Cowessess Ventures falls into the Albert Street property is we found that there was not a whole lot of benefit for the Albert Street property for Cowessess members. There's a nice CVL sign there, and there's the Tim Hortons there, but at the end of the day, we don't make a whole lot of money on that, if any. And at today's interest rates, we're not making any money out there right now. So we have to renegotiate some of those agreements that have been put place. We just 2 weeks ago, we've got the word that Tim Hortons is now refusing to have status exemption. And there's no levers for us to pull on right now, just based on some of the deals that were done there. So we have to go back and renegotiate a lot of those things to insert our inherent treaty rights on those things on Cowessess First Nation land. And so we want to make sure that there's been work that's been done in the past, but we still have to strengthen it to make sure that there's maximum benefit to the Cowessess First Nation band members. Same thing. Yeah. So as it sits right now, we have a mortgage. So Cowessess Ventures has a mortgage on the Tim Hortons building. It's not very much. It's not a very high mortgage. But right now, rent only covers the mortgage. There's no profit right now on that building whatsoever. From my understanding, I don't believe any that's my second office. I take all the meetings over there as much as possible. But go ahead. Question? Yeah. 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 Oh, you used the microphone? Okay. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Just a question. So we own the building if we're paying the mortgage?
So the mortgage, yes. After we
so-
pay off the mortgage, Cowessess will own the building.
So that is our building.
Yeah.
For how long?
It's a 25-year mortgage, I believe.
25-year mortgage on the building.
Yeah. And the construction began in 2021, I believe.
Like that kind of blows me away that we own that building. And we don't work there.
Yeah.
They lease it out to somebody else and we have no say whatsoever on the building.
Exactly.
Thank you, Cabness.
Just to be clear, when we talk about identifying where the agreements are at and trying to amend where we can those current agreements, as well as ensuring that we don't ever get into those kind of agreements again, I would have to say that that is probably one of the primary agreements that were the most shocking to us, because that is status land, our Cowessess status land. We built and mortgaged a building on it, and the amount that we lease it for sometimes, but not always, covers the mortgage amount that we have to pay to the bank in order to cover the cost of the building. And then on top of that, within that agreement, there were no conditions for employment for Cowessess, as well as because we don't own the business, we only own the building, even though it's mortgaged, that business has the ability to decide if they want to take tax exemption off salaries at source or not, or hire any indigenous people, let alone Cowessess people. And then on top of that, there is no obligation on their part to provide non-taxable goods there as well. So what Jake is doing now is he's going back to see if there's any room in there in order to try to manage and in order to see if we can put in those after the fact. And time will tell, as well as we're putting a plan in place, because I think it's after 10 years, we are also responsible for all repairs of that building. And so we are looking at trying to make enough money in order, and within that, in order to put aside money so that when furnaces break, roofs need to be fixed, or whatever the case is, Cowessess will have that money and it won't affect any type of deficits at that point.
Wants to know who pays the insurance.
Who pays the insurance? Yeah. So for us as landlords, we have an insurance, which we try to cover the cost. We'll also float that into the cost of the rent. But then the business itself will also have a separate set of insurance as well.
Answer your question. Okay, Doody.
So you had mentioned with the property on Albert Street that the current leases cover the actual mortgage for the property itself. Well, that's my next question is, I don't know if how long it took for that land to convert through the reserve status process. So prior to that, there would have been taxes on top of that, plus city services. So was any of that factored into no, it wasn't factored into leases. So those were extra leasehold that we were carrying for real property management. We had to carry that cost. and you're trying to factor that in now. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Thank you.
So, moving forward, we want to make sure that we're going into making long-term business decisions that are going to be long-term impactful for Cowessess First Nation members. And so there's joint ventures on there, but I should actually put partnerships rather than joint ventures, because once we go into any type of partnership, whether it be a Tim Hortons or whatever is going to be the next thing that's going to be done on any of our lands, is we want to make sure that we're going to be including, so on all of the agreements that I've been trying to renegotiate, first and foremost, revenue off the top, not profit at the bottom, but making sure that doesn't matter how good the business is doing, that making sure that Cowessess First Nation gets its share of a cut. Secondly, employment opportunities, and making sure that Cowessess First Nation has a right to employment on these opportunities, and making sure that those employees are going to be treated well. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the lessons learned about that as well. And then as well, we want to make sure that we're writing scholarships. And so we're not only taking for the employment opportunities for today's generation, but we're also going to be feeding tomorrow's generations through education with scholarships. And so moving forward, that's the type of agreements that I would like to set precedents moving forward to make sure that Cowessess has long-term economic benefit and as well as social benefit on a number of the projects that it's participating in. We want to move on to, so
I was just going to ask follow up then. So if you just had your first audit now, does that mean you're going to have an audit every year now?
yeah.
Okay, and so can you come back here and tell people what's going on? Because that's the first time we heard all this. Well, it's kind of a shocking disappointment.
So the board of directors, I'll just have to say that the board of directors were very, very firm that audits had to get caught up. And they were, that was one of their main, or I should say our priorities, but I'm new to there as well. And so I know especially Murray, who I don't know if he's the chair or the lead on the finance committee. He was very, very stern and very much needing to make sure. So also with Cowessess Ventures, they don't have a March 31st, April 1st. It's a November end of year, fiscal end of year. And so when Jake said that was November 2021, we just finished 2022 and we're starting to work on 2023. And the goal of the board is that it's finished hopefully within the next 4 months, and also already starting to work on 2024, because it's a different fiscal year within that. The other aspect that we have found with as a governance table, one of the disturbing things that we have found is that in order to zero out accounts, or in order to have those qualified audits or unqualified audits, is the unqualified audits, that we have utilized monies that are either own source revenue in order to zero it out, and that's not at CVL, but that would affect livelihood, but also that in this case, and we're just ensuring that it's possible, is that in that 1 year, we identified and added in as revenue $1.7 million in order, I think it was $1.7 million, in order to zero out that and to make us pass without a deficit. But in the next coming year, that it's actually going to show a deficit, that it was not us that we carried. So there's ways in order for that audits have been used in order to not show the truth. But our commitment as a governance table is that we're going to show the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if we are going to show a deficit, we'll explain why there's a deficit and what exactly happened that year. We're not there in order just to look good for the members, and we're not there to look good for the outside world. We're there to prevent or to present a true picture And that is if we show the true baseline, it actually shows the incredible growth that we have coming up. So even though that was a reality for that 2022 audit, we will never do that again.
Yeah. So, moving forward, so when I stepped into the role, what I really liked about the state of Cowessess Ventures is that it was invested into the renewables. My background, like I kind of alluded to it on spending time with George Gordon Developments, is that I helped develop with the Passagastou project, which is a 10 megawatt project near Weyburn, as well as another 30 megawatt solar project near K+S mine that's probably going to be announced pretty soon. But so anyways, I had a little bit of a renewable background on which I could take from there and bring over here. Beckervar Jotun, there's our new logo right there. Actually, that is not our logo yet. And so Jamie had a little bit of influence on that logo there. The wings are backwards. The wings are backwards right now. So just that was my mistake. I might have grabbed the old logo, but our wings are backwards on that one. So that was quite a conversation on getting that logo. So there's our Beckervar Jotun. Jotun is Cree for wind. And so we wanted to make sure that the projects that we're involved in, and so we have our own Cowessess touch on it as well. So Beckervar Jotun, we have, it's a 200 megawatt solar project that is yet to be, or November of this year, 2024, we're looking to quote unquote, turn the lights on for that project. So it'll be very exciting when that gets done. But when I stepped into the role, we found out that we didn't take into account paying taxes. And so there was a $6 million tax bill that that was going to come up to Cowessess First Nation. And so we had to make sure to adjust. We had to go through an LPA amendment in November. And so my October, my first month was very eventful on trying to make sure that there was not going to be a big tax bill of $6 million that's going to be coming back to the nation. And so we had to go do some adjustments and a little bit of negotiation back and forth with South Power and try to come up with some alternative ways to make sure that we're not going to be hit with a huge cash call. So that's still in the process. But what we've done so far through that is we actually sued KPMG. KPMG is the tax advisor through that. And so we're going to be suing them to recoup some of that opportunity cost, I should say, because it's not a hard cost. And we've also found some other ways to try to capture in more revenue. And so one of the ways that we were able to find being successful is turning on some of those turbines prior to November. And so those turbines can actually start producing power up until then. And so there's going to be called commissioning revenues, which will bring in a few $1 million before we actually turn the full facility on come November. So as it sits right now, we're at about 67% done. Unfortunately, we didn't monopolize on the project as much as we could have. We have a number of partners, and none of our partners were actually active on the site. And so it's very unfortunate that we were not able to get some of our own partnerships working on the site. And through that, we were not able to manage employment contracts effectively as well. And so right now we have a little bit of a dispute on working with the prime contractor on that site because they were not very supportive to our Cowessess members. And so we're holding their feet to the fire. I've been in numerous conversations with many of the leaderships and as well as with our co-owner Intergreen on how do we rectify the situation moving forward, but also we're already done construction. And it's just sad to say that we didn't monopolize on as much as we possibly could. We have 2 turbines that are on Cowessess First Nation land, and yet none of our people were there to be tax exempt working on that project. And so that was the lack of willingness by the prime contractor. And the unfortunate part is I wasn't on board at the time to hold their feet to the fire to say this is unacceptable. As an owner of the project, we want to make sure that we're supporting our workforce. And so that's a lesson learned. Unfortunately, like I said, we're almost 70% complete that project, but we're going to take that lessons learned to our next project for sure, and making sure that we're supporting our membership for jobs, and as well as creating economic opportunity for our partnerships, and as well as creating our own source revenue. There's a question.
I think it works this time. Yep.
Thank you. We have such little property and we owe such a big tax bill. Does that 6 mil just pertain to our property or to the whole project?
It pertains to the 6 million is our take of the entire tax. And so
The
the
entire-
overall tax, the situation was much higher than that, but our portion was 6 million.
You're talking the tax on the project?
Yeah.
So the whole project, you're
Construction,
not
the
just
construction.
talking tax on our property?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a $6 million tax bill you're trying to negotiate?
So what I've done thus far is I've met up with many ministers to explain the situation. We did an LPA amendment on being able to juggle this PST issue. We are in the clear as of right now. The only thing that we want to make sure is that we're in the clear now, but we're also in the clear for the future as well. And so we did an LPA, without getting too technical. What we did is we restructured the organization so that we were able to capture the commission revenues. We were able to not defer the tax, but recognize that Cowessess First Nation is still a tax liable entity on the Cowessess venture side. So it's a PST issue. It's not a GST issue. So it's not that the work has been remitted on the Cowessess First Nation land. It's more of an overall construction cost. Without getting too much, I think I could explain a little bit more. I might get too
Jeez.
much into the weeds
Yeah.
with you. And I might ask, might make you ask more questions rather than actually trying to.
I
So-
think we should if we got a $6 million bill.
Yeah, there is no,
Wow.
so what we're able to do is the LPA amendment. What we did is our partner took the $6 million hit. We didn't take the $6 million hit. And so
So
that's,
somebody did pay 6 million.
pardon?
So somebody did pay the bill?
We also, so we restructured it. So there is ICTs, they're called investment tax credits, I believe. And so how do I, yeah, but I don't want to get too technical.
Yeah.
So we're able to work with the ITCs to offset that tax. And so there was a tax rebate of 30%. We were only eligible for 50, or before this was all found out, we were only eligible for 15. But now working with Sask Power, we're able to be eligible for the full 30% tax rebate. And so that was also offset. And so the taxes were not necessarily still paid by the entire, by our partner. But we're able to find flexible solutions to try to eliminate the whole overall net of that $6 million hit.
It's just too bad people didn't work just as hard before as they do now. I mean, it's a little ridiculous for us to end up with a $6 million bill nobody knew about. Because nobody knew. We heard taxes, right? First time ever, 6 mil. So
So this actually came to our attention just prior to Jake taking on his role as CEO, and we freaked out because that 6 million is way less than the overall tax bill. So what Jake had meant was that, okay, so we have our turbines that are on Cowessess, but we are a 17.8% owner. So and CVL is not tax exempt in terms of when it enters into these partnerships with non-indigenous. So the overall project had, I think it was $26 million of a tax liability that was not considered at all. So when we first were notified, we were told that it was actually $26 million. And so thank goodness Jake has the connections as well as the information or the knowledge that he has in the network, because he immediately began to work on it. And we immediately took the stand. This was not our mistake. And so if this is not, we're not playing T-ball here, we're playing business. You know, it's business. And so even with our partners, they have to take liability and responsibility, which they haven't been under previous authorities. And so in order for Cowessess to not have to pay any of that 6 million, we are working in order, and the renegotiation of the LPA, but also if we have to, we will be taking a partner to court for any other amounts because it isn't our fault.
great, thank you. Sorry, but disturbing to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Then probably it would be below, if you brought us up to speed more on an annual basis rather than bringing it up at the end. Because even if it was 26 million, 6 million doesn't sound very much better to us. Now, at the end of the day, we're just finding out we owe money. $6 million is a lot of money. Thanks for bringing it up.
No, at the end of the day, we put a hard stance on, we dug our heels into it, so we're not paying $1. And so that's what we were able to do. We're negotiating and making sure that that delta has been eliminated on any cash calls for Cowessess First Nation on this project and any project moving forward. Cowessess is the 10 megawatt solar project that is by the turbine east of the city here. So February 14th, Valentine's Day last year, 2023, two inverters had went offline, and it took them about a month to find out that that was only functioning at 1/3%. And so it's, I think it finally came on just probably around the same time that I came on. So there was a number of months there that it was only functioning at 1/3%. So we had to, we didn't get the full benefit of that we thought we were going to do. And so that was kind of something that we had to step in and recognize there as well, is that the inverters went down. And yeah, so our premiums are going to be higher as a result. And so that was one thing that we had to make sure that we stepped into. So that was an unforeseen event, and we had to try to negotiate that, as well as because our loss was quite substantial for the operations of what we were expected to. And the other thing is that because it was our first year of operation, for insurance claims, what they usually do is they judge you based on your last 2 years' performances. But because we haven't had 2 years of performance, it was really hard to try to determine what that would be. And so what we did is we were able to over negotiate a price payout higher than what we thought it was going to be. And what we did is we took into our accounts as well as our premiums that are going to be increased as well. So we did have that as a revenue this year, but as past, like I said, we for that entire time there, we had 2 turbines down. And so we want to make sure that moving forward, we build those into our contingency plans, that with an inverter, it's going to go down. We want to make sure that we have something that's readily available. Cowessess wind and battery storage. That's another thing that we have out there. So we're going to have to determine and have a community discussion on what that's going to look like. That's been it's been within CVL's operations for a while now, and it's been quite profitable and quite for the scale it is. It's only 1 megawatt. But it's going to be nearing its end of life expectancy here pretty soon. So we're going to have to determine on what that's going to look like as well. So that's something I want to flag, and I just want to raise that here as well. Pending. So the things that I've been tasked with doing since we started is there's a 200 megawatt wind project near Weyburn on which we're negotiating right now. What our involvement in that one is very minimal, but we want to make sure from Cowessess First Nation is that we're also going to benefit not only as an equity owner, but we're also going to benefit from our partners and making sure that our partners are going to be participating in the project. We're going to hold our partners accountable for employing our people. We're going to make sure that they're going to create a fostering environment to make sure that our workforce is well looked after. They're going to be paying scholarships. And as well as we also are going to be negotiating the best terms for a long-term power purchase agreement with Sask Power to make sure that we're going to have cash flows for not only the next few years, but for the next 35 years. So that's going to be a 35-year commitment for that 200 megawatt project. Unfortunately, for a lot of these things that we've been that I will be talking about, I can't get into details. We signed an NDA. I can't tell you who we're working with. I can't tell you the site locations. I can't tell you a number of the information until it is announced. And so you will see announcements by the partners, not necessarily by myself. For myself, I'd much rather do the work and make sure that the work is done properly before making a huge announcement and being on the front of the news. That's something I'd like to avoid. But there'll be an announcement here in the near future, and I want to make sure that my numbers and my email is given so that if anybody has any questions, I could give you a full depth analysis of the good, the bad, the ugly of the negotiations. This morning, I got emails from our lawyers. We're also negotiating a 100 megawatt power purchase agreement with Sask Power and potential partners. April 25th is the deadline for the RFP for the 100 megawatt. And so we're going to be determined, Sask Power is going to judge us if we are going to be participating on that. And there's going to be another 200 megawatt win that's going to be announced here. So we have our hat in the race. Whether we're successful or not on those two projects is undetermined, but we want to make sure that we're benefiting on those projects as well from an equity standpoint and a construction standpoint as well. Next one. Yeah.
Just a further comment on the Cowessess solar. So when we came on into council, we were told at that time that there was a considerable amount of the solar panels that were down since a month in to them being set up, and that just to let everybody know, it was a manufacturer's issue where it wasn't anybody's fault that except for the manufacturer that these went down. But where I think that where, if you could say that we were slow, is once we found out right away, we should have been dealing with it with the manufacturer. And my question when I came on and I found this out, well, why aren't we holding the manufacturer accountable for our loss of income? And so the answer at the time from the employee was, well, we want to show that we're good business partners. And once again, I said, this is business. This is not, if they were losing money, and we were responsible for that, would we say just Kiam, like, never mind? And so it ended up the best case scenario at that point, other than keeping the manufacturer and having that person responsible, is we were able to put in an insurance claim and recoup most of the money, because once again, as Jake said, it's the first year, so we didn't know exactly how much the loss was. But we're fairly confident that it covered the entire loss. But because of that, we don't know what that premium is going to be. And so now what we're looking at is there any way for that premium increase in a business sense to hold the manufacturer responsible? Because at the end of the day, with that premium increase, because of that manufacturer's defect, where Cowessess is still going to be paying money on top of that. So it may be an amount that we may just have to suck up and consider it a loss, but we will investigate it as far as we can to try to ensure that Cowessess doesn't pay any cent more than what we should have been paying with that.
I'll talk a little bit more about the pending projects later on. That will do the next one. And so another area of strength on which I've seen that Cowessess Ventures was set up for was land development. I don't know of a word. I was trying to go back and forth within my brain to try to wrangle up a word to kind of think about how to put this pillar. And land development was the best thing that I could do, but there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done, and it's working in unison with TLE and Chief and Council, and a lot of the committee members, and as well as the technicians that are involved with both of those entities. And so to say that we're in land development is a little bit of a stretch, because we don't really have access to the land. It's a TLE and it's a Cowessess First Nation and a Cowessess membership thing. But what we are doing is we're project managing the land and at the best of our abilities to make sure that we're going to be setting up Cowessess First Nation members for not only today, but for the many years to come. So having a long-term plan that doesn't just impact the next 5 years, but making sure that we're impacting the next 50 to 500 years. I'm probably going to open up a can of worms here, but we're going to talk about Hawkstone a little bit. So Hawkstone was something that we're negotiating right now. So Hawkstone is a portion of land that is currently, we're thinking about what does that land look like in regards to Cowessess First Nation. And CVL is doing the business work and the due diligence on that. We've applied for a number of grants to make sure that our costs are going to be minimized, but make sure that we're hiring the people that is going to have the best interest to develop those plans, and making sure that we're involved in those plans. And so we're not actually going to be just on paying for a plan and it's get it handed to us, we're actually going to be holding the pen and developing that plan with people that have those technical expertise.
Hang on.
Yep.
What is Hawkstone? What is the property of Hawkstone? What is it?
When is it?
What is it? What is it? What is it?
Yeah, it's a piece of land right now that it's within the city of Regina limits.
And
It's
what,
156 acres. Northwest
Where?
end. It is north of the Capital Auto Mall.
everybody know where that is?
Pardon?
Okay, and so bring us up to speed. We don't know anything about what, yes,
Yeah.
we know where it is now,
That way.
but what?
Yeah, it's that way. So this is a TLE question. Cowessess Ventures is not purchasing the land. So we've been tasked with trying to negotiate with the city on making sure that the price is going to be there, and as well as the business, it is attached with the business plan. And so we've been tasked to come up with a business plan to see what is going to be viable there. So it's zoned industrial. There is a portion of it, it's 156 acres. It's 4.4. I don't even remember what the price tag on it, to be honest. I'm just sorry. I'm just everything.
Much.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, Councillor Allison. I sit as chairperson for Treaty Land Entitlement. I took over the role from Barry Sparvier here a couple months ago, upon being appointed to the table, getting told to come in front of the camera. I'm glad Barry's here, so in case I stumble, the option agreement to purchase the Hawkstone property was at the table when our chief and council were elected from the prior leadership. And it was presented and analyzed by the table of trustees over the past year. The last trustee meeting that we've had, the trustees made the motion to purchase the land for $3.56 million for 156 acres. And we've also passed the motion at the trustee table to develop an MOA with the CVL board to develop the land moving forward. So it's smart, strategic, and moving forward with advising from people who have been involved for past and leadership and trustees, and under that advising was the strong need for TLE land and economic development to get together and develop strategies that are smart and forward thinking and business sense for including land acquisition policies moving forward, so that we can develop stronger business cases for such like the Hawkstone, so coming forward, we heard the rumor that there would be development like a Costco, if you heard that rumor out there, things like that. But they were all, nothing's really set in stone until we move forward with the business plan, strong case analysis, so we're really pleased to be working together in a more cohesive way.
Thank you, Chair. When we, the TLE trustees have been doing incredible, they've been doing a lot of work. I want to acknowledge past Chair Barry, who's here today as well. I think it was the first day that we were elected. He came and he met with myself and said, we need to develop that strong link between TLE and economic development, because as TLE, we've not been strategically buying land except if it was a good deal on the cost of the land. And so it's in that MOA between TLE as well as right now, Jake, and we're really glad that the CVL board has allowed for him to kind of have that crossover, because he is CVL's employee, is that when we look at Hawkstone, Albert Street property, the Yorkton property, Saskatoon Corman Park, as well as Broadview, and not one of those properties has a business plan behind them. And so every year TLE is paying property taxes on them because we haven't moved them to reserve yet either. So that's the work of the TLE board in moving, other than I should say the Albert Street property is, most of it is reserve status. But the other areas we're working towards that business plan to get us making money instead of losing money on property taxes every year. And when we talk about the land development, we're trying to do that business, the business appraisals to see what is feasible on all those lands. That's not going to end up costing us money like much of our previous ventures have been.
The other thing I wanted to add in there, from a CVL perspective and a business case perspective, is that I did say 4.4. It's not 4.4. I know that's high. It's higher. I don't know exactly what it is. But what I wanted to do is we're going to be making all of our business decisions to incorporate that purchase price as well, and any costs that are associated to move it to reserve status, if that's going to be the case, to making sure that it's going to be recouped. And so we have that plan of making sure that we're not just going to be taking free land and try to develop it and not actually hold anything. So a business case has to make X% of profit plus going to replenish the TLE for that fund that's being used. And so we have Hawkstone. There's negotiations that are still undergoing with the city of Regina. Once again, I can't get too much into the details because it's not a CVL area, it's a TLE area. The option to purchase the land was a TLE. It wasn't with CVL, it was with TLE. But I've been tasked to negotiate with the city of Regina for that piece of land. The Albert Street property, that's another thing that will, it's not necessarily a CVL, even though CVL has the head lease for the Tim Hortons building, but making sure that where our earmarked position for the Mio Pomazzo Center of Excellence is going to be located, what else can we fit on there? And so we're doing a business analysis to see what other opportunities are there. We're just going through a case of a car wash to replace Sunshine or a grocery store. And so just using those two, we're also going to be exploring other options. But once again, it has to make business sense, and we have to make sure that we're doing it we're going to be not only benefiting from construction to operations, and then whatever's next is a legacy, whether we own or operate a building afterwards. But we want to make sure that Cowessess First Nation membership is fully involved through the construction and the development of the operations of the project. And so those are some of the decisions that are going to be upcoming here as well. But it's working collaboration with TLE, the lands department, because sometimes the land is managed by lands, and economic development and social development, workforce development, sorry, and chief and council as well. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the Urban Indigenous Health Center, what was previously thought that it was going to be there. And when we came in and we looked at it, we saw that it was not feasible, that Cowessess would never make money or even break even if we built it as it was envisioned. There was a very substantial environmental grant, green grant, that was, I think, 18 million, 15.6 million that we would receive, which sounds awesome to build a building, but it set in order to accept that grant, it actually increased our costs in order to build it because we had to meet certain standards. And because of that, it actually went to almost initially, when we came on, it initially was almost twice the cost for somebody to lease per square foot as what is the market rate for the rest of the real estate that's in Regina. So we knew that there would be absolutely nobody on God's green earth that would be able to afford it, let alone why would they pay it other than perhaps a tax exemption if they were a First Nations professional. And so that's, as we were moving forward, we also found out that previous term, there was an ask to the Red Bear Children's Lodge board of directors for $1 million up front in order to help pay for some of the costs of the Urban Indigenous Health Center, where they would have some offices. And that actually came out of the capital costs. And so there's a little bit of gray within there because Cowessess would own the building, it wouldn't be Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge. And so, and also there was no building built in order to borrow or to get $1 million worth of rent, lease rent, in order to pay for this, in order to pay for the building. And so one of the challenges also that we had is that Cowessess is now in the position that if we don't do something and make it right with Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, that we're almost $750,000 in debt to Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, because that's the amount of money that's been used on consultants and soft costs already from that $1 million that's been spent. And so we're trying our best, and the Mio Pamatsuen Center of Excellence for Children and Youth is going to be, we're very excited about it. That's the reality on this side, but the reality on this other side is that we have incredible opportunity to create what Regina and our people that don't have. So we have the Mio Pamatsuen Center of Excellence for Children and Youth. Number 1, we call it unofficially on reserve. So we're hoping to get that built as soon as possible for our children and youth, as well as in the city on that property. And we have paused all costs right now associated because we just kept on getting hundreds, if not thousands of dollars every month on consultants just meet for the sake of saying, are you guys ready yet? And so we've completely paused, and we're really working hard with different government officials as well in different areas in order to bring more capital in there, in order to bring down that cost of the square footage to make it manageable for not only Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, our urban office, but also bringing in other professionals, indigenous professionals that will come in and we'll truly have a center of excellence, not only for our children and families, but all children and families that live in Regina here. So we've very much walked into something that we're really trying to do the best we can. And that's another, I guess, challenge that Jake has had, is with those soft costs and how we're going to put that strategy in place where Cowessess will not be in the position to owe Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge that kind of money, and that we do the best that we can with the remaining amount, or else we give it back to Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge.
Can I ask a question? Well, it's kind of odd though, but like $1 million for a building wasn't that supposed to be meant for kids? Like, I don't know where the kids come in here for $1 million. What are we doing with $1 million of children's child welfare money? Is that allowed?
Last January, right before the election, when the flood claim, that vote didn't go through, they were going to use that money in order for the Urban Indigenous Health Center. And when that vote failed, they went to the Chief Red Bear Children's Board of Governors and they got the money, that $1 million from there instead.
How come you had to get $1 million? You were on the hook for $1 million?
I can't speak to that, but what we know now is that it has been utilized for soft costs for consultants and other people.
Well, I guess it's not fair to ask a Red Bear question because we haven't seen Red Bear yet. But that's $1 million out of our kids' money. Well, I don't think you spent $1 million on kids yet.
Yeah, so the one comment was about the soft cost. The soft cost is the design and development of the building, going with architects. There was a building designed for the Albert Street property, which I understand is already been paid for, and then they went in another direction to redesign the building. And that's where they went to Chief Red Bear Children's Lodge, being that they're going to be in that building sometime down the road in the future when it's completed. And that initial $1.1 million is what they used to start that project. working with engineers and architects and consultants. So when we came in, and it wasn't even the 1.1, they designated just over 5 million for capital, and then they were going to charge Chief Red Bear another 25 years of lease, which would have turned into about the $17 million total out of the C92 funds, which is our Chief Red Bear fund. So it was they were relying really heavily on our children's money essentially. And we don't know what services would have been in that building. We know staff were going to be in the building, but that's still stuff we're working through. We did change the name from the UIHC to the Pomotsuan Center 2. Just to have those services in the city, not only for our children, but for all children in Regina. So they can be utilized by all families and all because all other First Nations people are in hard places and they're going through stuff. So we're trying to help them out with whatever way we can by using our organization and our C92 to give them a place to go, both on and off reserve. So yeah, but we're still working through design. I was tasked to that project along with Councillor Curtis here as well, and it was going nowhere fast. They kept asking for the money. They kept asking where this money's coming from, when we're gonna get it, just to get the project going. And it came to the point where we just kind of halted the project. We don't have that agreement yet. We're still working through that. And I know, like my dad mentioned, that we haven't gotten to Chief Red Bear and the C92 just yet for talks, but we're still going in negotiations with Canada to get our capital funding and get a 5 or 10-year extension agreement with them. But there was money being spent that essentially we didn't even have yet. That 5 million plus 17 million for the 25 years. It's not we don't have it. We don't have that agreement yet with Canada. But when we get there, then we can move forward with this project and hopefully see the benefits of what it really truly can be for all of our First Nations children.
Yeah, moving on to the other lands that we have here. So we have the Yorkton land, Saskatoon, Corman Park, and Broadview. I know Cowessess TLE had purchased much more parcels of land, but this is kind of what we have earmarked right now. I wanted to flag it just to let membership know that we are thinking about plans and what that means for not only planning for what is it doing right now, but for economic development in the future. Currently, right now, there is we're going to be doing another business plan. There was a business plan that was made a few years back on the Yorkton lands. And so we're just kind of getting up to speed on what the Yorkton lands is right now and what it could be in the future. So there is plans that are being made there. Corman Park, the one issue about Corman Park is that it lacks serviceability. And so with the development of Stonebridge right across the street there, so now the serviceability may be there, but it's still going to come at a high cost. So we just have to go through an analysis on what it is right now. What is it zoned as? What are the opportunities? What are going to be the access points for it? And what can we build with it? And so there's still, I just want to let membership know that it is on the radar. And same thing with Broadview land on making sure that Al Steakhouse land is being utilized and where's it's not just being purchased for the sake of being purchased, that we'll have followed up with a plan that makes money.
You have any idea yet?
KFC. I just kidding. Yeah, got a question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a question back on the Albert Street building there. Any consideration of making a hall for funerals and stuff? Because right now in Regina, we do not have anywhere for funerals to be available. So if we can get that building to include a hall so that people can have funerals, because there's no, right now in Regina, there's nowhere to have funerals.
That's actually one of the priorities that we've talked about as a council, not necessarily CVL, but with the 1907, like with the plans when our claim comes in. And we already have like reserve land on the northwest end, and we're looking at providing a place for ceremonial as well as for our people to come and do their feasts as well as
Oh, the reason
funerals.
why I'm saying this is because it's more easy access for people that live in the area to go to this
Oh.
place instead of driving somewhere
I
else.
don't think that we would be looking at the Albert Street because you don't make money on funerals and wakes because
It's
most
just
of the
there for
time.
convenience. That's what I'm saying.
Right,
Like,
right.
why
And
can't
it-
you just put a hall in there so that, like this place, right?
Yeah, like what we're looking at is for, especially on that Albert Street, for it to be commercial and for it to cost, or for us to make money. And so with our other lands, we are looking at prioritizing a wake funeral as well as a place for ceremonies and feasts as well.
So another strength that we've seen is that there's already been some foundation set for some businesses that are established. So Cowessess Gas Station 1 and 2. Right now we have a pending acquisition as well. Okay, let's see. He doesn't want to take the heat on these next coming questions. No, just kidding. I kind of alluded to it earlier right away is that immediately we noticed that there was a gap there and Cowessess Gas Station 1 wasn't being supported as best possible that we could do from a CVL perspective. And so we went into a memorandum of understanding with economic development to further support Cowessess Gas Station 1 in the community. And with that, we had to hire a new manager and a supervisor. That was one of the things that we wanted to address right away, as well as getting caught up on a lot of the bookkeeping that needed to be done over there. Right now, so we tasked the manager to go out there to do analysis and a marketing mix, the product mix, to making sure that what is going to be upcoming for the future for the summertime on the product service, the products offering right now, as well as the long-term usage, all year usage of the product. And so the one thing that Chief already talked about was the price of milk. And that's just not, milk is just one example, but there's several products over there that is, the markups are extremely high. And so from my perspective, as I started exploring different options from ESSO, just to make sure that we could access reduced supplier rates rather than just utilizing ESSO supplier rates. And so making sure that we could get quality product to Cowessess Gas Station 1 at reduced rates so that we could pass those savings on to membership. Within there, we're revamping what Cowessess Gas Station 1 looks like and taking it from a revenue perspective and making sure that we are the chief, she really uses this term and I like it a lot, as wealth creation. It's not necessarily about money and dollars at value at the end of the day, but also what is the community support that it brings. And so the employability of our people on the reserve, the servicing of our people on the reserve, and then as well as making sure that it's a place where not only that Cowessess members can use, but also the people that are out there in the summertime and the wintertime, as well as the neighboring reserves. And so having that competitive edge, and as well as being able to walk the fine line of being a for-profit organization, but at the same time too, making sure that the services are there for the people and they're not having to drive to the neighboring communities to purchase reduced products over there. So that's something that we wanted to install right away. We're taking a really hard look on what the future looks like for Cowessess Gas Stations too. With the expansion of the market of Regina over the last 20 years of the introduction of Sakamay Gas Station, Ochapways Gas Station, Creelan, the inconvenience of going out to the East End and going out of town to go and get gas and cigarettes and the retail products out there, it's more of an inconvenience. So it's lost its competitive edge. So we're trying to explore some ideas on what that piece of property will look like in the future. What does the gas station look like? And so we have completed an analysis, and we're just waiting to make sure we have a little bit more analysis to do on alternative actions as well before we could present what that may look like for Cowessess Gas Station 2. But Cowessess Gas Station 2 has not been very profitable in the recent years with the introduction of especially Ochapways. And so I just wanted to let membership know that as well, as that there is plans being made for backup plans, and there's all types of analysis being done. I have a pending acquisition on there and I can't speak to it, but I'll speak to it a little bit later on what that looks like, but I can't announce anything. Like I said, there's non-disclosure agreements being made there, but we are exploring options on a pending acquisition. Expansion of partnerships. The one thing that I found that was lacking within Cowessess Ventures is being able to have partnerships that made sense. So there was a number of partnerships that were not really financially motivated. I don't know if it was a tokenism or if it was just for the sake of getting a partnership done. There's a number of partners that haven't, there's only one partner on that entire board that has actually made money prior to my arrival. And so we have to re-explore those negotiations and renegotiate those. Some of them are negotiated on profit rather than revenue. And so we want to make sure that we're negotiating for revenue. So it doesn't matter what the project's profitability is. We're making sure that Cowessess First Nation gets money, as well as employment opportunities, scholarship, and making sure that we are benefiting on our own projects as well. And so we have GB Construction 306, Cowessess Drivers, Iconic, Pure Clean Energy, as MOUs and joint ventures and compensation agreements. GB's Construction, we're expecting to make $150,000. And 306, with the past couple months here, we're expected to make $60,000. And this is just the beginning of construction season. This doesn't take into consideration during the summer months or other contracts that could be awarded. We have pending contract with Breck Construction, Strad, GP Earth, Rising Edge Technologies. And so there's a lot of negotiations that has to go on to the expansion of the partnership side and making sure that the partnerships are going to be paying dividends to the community. And so what does that mean for membership? I put a lot of money up there. What I want to make sure is that for every dollar that Cowessess Venture makes, that 25% of that goes into the community, and the community can spend whatever is needed at the time. And so if that's investment into infrastructure, that's what these partnerships will allow to. As time as we start to build up our human capacity and our financial capacity, we want to make sure that we could do an acquisition to take over one of these partners. And so that's kind of the long-term growth and strategy for the partnership development. Let's go to the next one. So what's next? Breck Construction, we're anticipating if we sign a partnership with them that we could get them immediate impact on value on utilizing some of my connections within the mining community. Strad Construction, we talked a little bit. There's plans that could be made, and we're trying to figure out on how best to. So Strad, it won't necessarily make a whole lot of money, but what I'm trying to do is making sure that we provide a service, and as well as we could provide employment opportunities. And so that one is a more of a long-term growth on what we can do with that one. Renewables, like I said, we're negotiating a 100-megawatt solar project right now. The due date for that one is April 25th, and so we're coming down to the wire. What that could look like is we'd have a 10 to 30% interest on that project with an estimated annual revenue of $300,000 per year or $900,000 per year. If we're successful with that one, that's what the revenues would look like. If we're unsuccessful, we're not going to be sad, because there's a 200-megawatt wind project that is also going to be out for tender here pretty soon, which we'll also be bidding on. With that one, the expectation would be an estimate of $600,000 to $1.8 million per annum of pure profit into the organization. And like I said, the same thing with the partnerships is Cowessess First Nation would expect to see 25% of that money directly into the community. Right now, we're almost at the fine that we're looking for a June announcement to announce this 200-megawatt wind project. We only have a 5 to 6% interest in that one. That one was with a conglomerate of other parties that are investors into that one. Right now, we're negotiating on who constructs that. And so that's what I talked about on being able to benefit economically, is that we haven't done so in the past on our own projects, and we want to make sure that moving forward that we're doing so. estimated revenues is about $300,000 to $400,000 per annum based on the returns for that project. But what it looks like during construction, that could be immediately impact. Those revenues won't be here until 2027. But over the next 12 months to 24 months, we could probably expect to see $500,000 during construction that wouldn't be captured under that, as well as the employment opportunities and the scholarship opportunities. Land, Hawkstone, there's currently the acquisition. There's negotiations right now on how to make sure to negotiate that project to make sure that there's good business plans that are put behind it. And it's not another land that's going to be purchased just for the sake of purchasing because it was put forward, but it's going to be actually well utilized and it's going to make money for Cowessess First Nation. Albert Street property, currently right now is being explored. It's an easy one is advertising. Advertising that land would be revenue that would go straight to the nation. Cowessess Ventures is just brokering that deal. And the grocery store, but Cowessess, like I kind of alluded to earlier, the grocery store is only one component. The thought process there is being able to have a grocery store, but also leveraging that supplier relationship to make sure that the Cowessess grocery store in the community, will also have reduced prices for products there. So that's currently being there's analysis being done on that as well. Yorkton Lands, the corp funding application for a business plan there is currently it's been submitted. So hopefully we could get a business plan funded for that one right away. We have an acquisition that we have to decide if we're going to be pursuing, but it's an estimated of $175,000 per year of pure dividends and $1.25 million, $175 to $1.25 million based on the year. I could get a little bit more specifics once that one's announced or once I could talk about that one, but that one would require no upfront capital on behalf of Cowessess First Nation or Cowessess Ventures. Human resources, moving forward, my very first thing that I wanted to do when I said I accepted the role is I wanted to build Cowessess Ventures Limited to be employed by Cowessess First Nation people. And I know that I'm not from Cowessess First Nation. I gave a commitment to for 5 years to Cowessess Ventures. But I did say that I wanted to mentor the next leaders and making sure that it's Phoebe. It's for indigenous by indigenous. It's and so currently I've been on a recruiting spree on trying to tap into the brilliant people that belong to Cowessess. And we'll be having a job posting here pretty soon. And I'm hoping that we could hire somebody right away because there's a lot of projects that need a lot of attention. And currently right now it's very overwhelming. And so I'm really excited once we're able to backfill a lot of the positions for Cowessess members and as well as onboarding new people. We're wanting to make sure that Cowessess Ventures will be 100% Cowessess by the end of my tenure. That's something that I'm very excited to do and move towards. Yeah, moving on. The next one there. Okay, what was that? I did it. Yeah, and so there's my contact information. I want to make sure that my contact information is up there and I'm always available. If you wanted to have a little bit more discussions on opportunities or ideas that you had for any of the projects that we're pursuing, or you want to get a little bit more details and we couldn't really do it in the short amount of time, I have my name and my number there. And at this time, I don't leave it a little bit. If there's any questions, I'd like to go ahead and answer it. The question.
Again, to the solar project. Back home, we have 2 panels there feeding the mall and the water treatment plant. I was wondering how those were, cost savings, or are they still operational?
From a CVL perspective, I try not to get involved on the economic development perspective. And so that's an economic development. I wouldn't know the answer to that. I tried to, yeah.
So that would be Gary?
Gary, yeah.
Gary's party?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And just another point when it comes to the Tim Hortons, they ain't gonna be paying top dollar for a 10-year-old building or a 20-year-old building. So if you're having a hard time to meet your costs now, you'll be in trouble for the next 20 years on that building.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Renegotiations have to be done. And so, a lot of, so when it comes to the land, when it comes to the business plans, when it comes to a lot of the partnerships, a lot of renegotiations has to be done. And so that's one thing that I plan to do and I've been continuing doing.
You know where?
So just going back to our solar panels on the nation, there wasn't really enough data tracking to see what those are saving us. There's no measuring device on the panels to show us what kind of kilowatts they're producing. And they're just there to offset utility bills on those buildings, but they don't know how much it's offsetting. They have no numbers to compare them to.
I was just gonna say, have you guys ever considered like doing anything with internet for some of those business deals? You know, like, say, and even like for charity wise, like, you know how I'm gonna use, well, SaskTel and Access, but even Access has like those TV bingos. And then half of that money, they usually, of course, it goes to other things too, but little things like that, right? So anything to do with internet. Because obviously that's the future. Everybody's attached to their phones, so.
We do have a partnership that is pending MOU right now, and it's regarding data centers. And so that's one area that we are looking to explore. One, it has to make sense. Two, it has to make sure that it makes sense on any Cowessess First Nation land, and it has to make sure that it's contributing back into the TLE, that the money that was used to purchase that land, it's actually, there's a source of revenue that's going back into those accounts. And so those are kind of the analysis that we're doing right now when it comes to anything like that. Yeah, as far as any other technology right now, I'm all ears. Yeah.
The only other question I have is also like for transport, you know, transportation, like the trucks and stuff like that. So even like you were saying on the Cowessess gas station too, if you put something there, they can gas up and they're making money. It just recycles throughout, right? So something like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you guys have anything to do with transportation, stuff like that?
No, not currently right now. Yeah. Not to say that it's not. Yeah.
You're buying stuff, you know, so people, you know, those truckers are busy.
Yeah,
Get our merchandise for our homes.
exactly. Get a FedEx truck or an Amazon truck that delivers strictly to Cowessess. Yeah. 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 Phoebe. Yeah. Well, I don't know what, if it was a vowel that's, started off with Cowessess, maybe we can't really pronounce FCBC.
Just one last, we were trying to clarify for
Yeah.
us here. When you're saying that Hawkstone land, where that capital is now, the next one right north of it, that's a field, right? That's the one you're talking about. How far this way does it go? How big is the
All the
property?
way to Ring Road, all of that vacant land.
Okay, makes sense.
It's zoned industrial right now, and so right now we're working with the city of Regina to make sure that it's zoned appropriately so that we can monetize the best value whatever we do with it. We want to make sure that we're not pinning it into a corner and not letting the city of Regina tell us what we can and can't do on our land.
Good enough. All right.
There's no community consultation thus far that's being done until we actually acquire it. Because we don't have anything that is like the neighbors, the people, like they're urban residents. There is the option. I don't know if there's anything that has been done prior to the option being signed. Because it's within the blast radius of Everast Place, there's limitations on what we can do. So right now we're kind of going through those negotiations when it comes to commercial use, industrial use, and as well as residential use.
Okay, so since you brought it up, yes, I know that property is located adjacent to Everaz, which is a smelting industry that's been going on for, I'm going to say 50, 60 years in that area. So when we talk about land we acquire there, I think that's great. We're looking at that's zoned industrial. That's definitely proper based on what the history is around there. In terms of environmental reclamation, what kind of studies are we doing on that land to see what has been deposited there through the smelting activity over the last half a century, and how will that impact our development of that land? Have we done any of that homework yet? And can you share that with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Stantec has been procured by the city of Regina. So we didn't actually have to, we're going to be piggybacking on the Stantec report paid by the city of Regina, not by Cowessess, and utilizing that information on what can be done. And through the ATR process, additions to reserve, there'll have to be phase 1 and phase 2s done completed anyways. the good thing is we have access to corp and we'll be able to pay to get those done as well. But we want to make sure that we're using our corp grants effectively. So right now we're just piggybacking on the city of Regina's work that they've done with Stantec. And as it sits right now, is it doesn't look like there's any environmental concerns on the good portion of the land. There's one area in the land that was flagged, but it was more or less used for snow removal. And that's the reason the issue was. There's a snow removal issue. It wasn't impact from Evraz or IPSCO or, yeah.
But that's an excellent question, Dodie, because on the Albert Street property, the additional land was purchased and the sunshine or the where Minute Muffler was, and there wasn't the proper environmental impact assessments that were done there. And before we could move it to addition to reserve, it actually cost TLE hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to clean extra in order to clean that up. That was not factored in when the land was purchased. So that's a lesson learned that will never happen again under our watch.
Other
Anybody
questions?
else? I don't know if you're getting to the end, but we maybe can take a 5-minute break here
Yeah,
anytime. we're done.
I'm pretty much wrapping up. I think, yeah,
All right, because we have one more group present after this, do we not? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, just call it. 5 minutes.
Okay, we're just going to let everyone go for, I know that's a lot of information and this is the reality that we came into, but the future is incredibly bright, as you can see, and that we're doing things in a different way, a business way. And we have our experts on the CVL board to rely on, and they're incredible people with incredible business sense. And so we're really looking forward to them doing that heavy lifting with Jacob on moving forward. But we needed to know this before we could get ready for the huge influx of opportunity that we expect within the next 12, maximum 18 months. So you always have to know what you're dealing with before you can improve. So that's what we're doing in setting up the systems. 5-minute break, and then I don't think that the ECDev portion is going to take quite as long as the CVL has, and we probably should be able to get out of here closer around 4:30 if we take only 5 minutes. Thank you. All right. So hand it over to Terrence to hand it over to me.
Want to get in the front? Where's our man? Jamie, I thought Jamie's up.
Jamie, and I know that Barry we've moved him to May the 2nd, but if he wants to come up here in case there's questions, feel free. Prep Center, Barry.
Who's taking the head of that?
And, you know, as part of who we are as a team, even when we don't have the counselors responsible for these different areas, we all have made the commitment to come and support each other. So I'd like to acknowledge in the crowd, we have Counselor Terry Leroy. And we have, like I said before, the man, the myth, the legend, Counselor Malcolm Delorme. And he's the one who's going to make it snow on Wednesday for leaving the reserve today. But don't worry, it won't snow too long because he's going back home right away. Yeah, he has to check his old trap lines. And then, of course, he is one of the counselors responsible for Livelihood, as well as Counselor Curtis and Counselor Brandon. Yeah, even they need a clap. Even them, they can get clapped for. For the, it should be Livelihood Committee, not Education Committee. So we have Carol LaValle, our knowledge keeper and our senior. We currently have a position vacant for our youth, and we are eagerly anticipating an influx of applications for a youth who would like to participate on the Livelihood Committee. And then we have Dodie Leroy Ferguson, the birthday girl. And unfortunately, Bonnie as well as Edward could not make it today. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our livelihood governance, as well as myself as ex officio here in order to talk about some of our ECDEV. I also would like to give regrets on behalf of Gary, who is our ECDEV coordinator. He did work on this with us. He had to fly, he had a previous commitment, so him and another staff member are getting certified in actually taxation. And he had to fly out today and couldn't attend. So he sends his regrets, and he has worked on this with us and works very closely with Jake, as well as all of our ECDEV ventures on reserve, as well as all the other departments. Next slide. So under ECDEV, we're going to leave, I'm just going to say this and then we'll pass it over, I think, to maybe to Councillor Brandon and Curtis, as well as Councillor Malcolm, if you'd like to. All Gary would like to have us mention for the 4C Farms Limited is he is the senior technician for our 4C Board of Directors. And so much of his job, when did Gary come on? Was it July-ish of June of 2023? And so he's had a learning curve, but a lot of his time has been assisting us with where we're going in the future with our 4C Farms and Ranch. And so we're doing the deep dive on the 25th of the 4C Farms and Ranch. But for right now, he just wanted to have it acknowledged and recognized that much of, a good 50 to maybe 75% of the work that he's been doing on reserve has been in getting us moving on our new way forward, that is moving from contracting people to come and farm our 4C farms to us actually being the owners and operators of our 4C ranch. So there's been very much of a huge transition piece, moving from contracting others to come into us owning and operating our own farms and equipment. Next, we have Last Oak Golf and Country Club, and introducing Jamie Delorme here, and I'm going to hand over the microphone to talk about his experience and what the plans are for the upcoming season.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As you guys all know, I'm the general manager. I've been there since 2019 when I started. When we did start, we only had 9 holes, and it wasn't consecutive holes. It was just 9 holes. So since I've been there, we've slowly been trying to upgrade everything on the golf course. And it takes time and money. That's why we're kind of a strain on the band sometimes. Well, most of the time, but they kind of understand what we're doing and where we're going to. We're just about ready to get a breakthrough year. We're just on the verge of it. With over the past several years with us upgrading everything, it just, I know I seem excited about it for some reason. Like one major project we're going to start doing this year is we're going to install VLTs this year again. They were taken out when we flooded back in 2011 and 2013, something like that. Was it 11 and 14? Yeah, and then we were closed, so they took the VLTs out. So I'm in the process of helping get them back in. So we will have VLTs probably before the summertime. That's my goal. Oh, question?
Is it true that we are a PGA certified golf course yet?
No, not yet.
Not
We
yet.
did
Are
have-
we working towards being?
Yes, I have been working with Golf Canada, Golf Saskatchewan, and they did come and assess our golf course last year.
Okay, I was just wondering about that because I've been hearing that we're already, but we're not quite there yet.
We're not quite there yet.
Okay then.
It's still in process. No, you're not allowed to say anything.
Good one.
In the back,
That's a
in the
good-
back.
Good one.
Okay, thanks for the question, George. Okay, bye.
I was wondering, I heard this thing, is it true that we own 8 slot machines on Cowessess First Nation? We're the only nation to own 8?
No, we don't own any slot machines.
I thought we owned 8.
No, we don't.
Past chief and council had referred that they owned 8.
Microphone.
I'm Darnell Pelche, the Community Development Officer for Little Child Community Development. The slot machines that you're talking about, I did see the letter from SIGA saying that we did have them, but we are going in another direction with the VLTs for Last Oak. That's what they were supposed to replace was the VLTs, but now we're going with the VLTs from SAS Gaming. We would never receive them from them. No, that deal kind of fell through with SIGA. Yeah, that was on the tables when I first got hired, and that's kind of gone to the wayside, and we've gone another direction with the SAS Gaming.
That answer your question? Good. Anybody else?
Actually, she just asked me about the improvements on the back nine. Our back nine has been closed for quite some time. I think in 2021, we started renovating it. We did complete it all in July of 2021 and started playing it late July. So we do have a fully functional 18 holes now. And that's taken a lot of time and effort to do, long hours, but we did it with the help of chief and council. Whether old or new, I know I'm going to get help from this chief and council too. I guess I just got told no. I'm just kidding. I do want to make one statement. We did make money in 2021 or 22. It wasn't very much, but we did make money. Actually, do you remember that? Yep. Yeah. Do you remember that, Mel? It was just a little bit. It wasn't much.
Okay, and I used to work at the golf course. It was the first place I was employed on the nation. I was 15 years old and I started in the pro shop. And when I left working there as a university student, I was working with this guy. So I know what it's like to work with him. But that being said, he's been there for a very long time and I'm very comfortable that he has maintained his relationship at the golf course. But another question I have, just because I'm a golfer, my children are golfers, my grandchildren are golfers, my husband, we live on the golf course. I know that with our golf course, we have a lot of assets like, like the fairway mowers, all of our equipment and such. And during the flood, we lost our maintenance shed in our shop. Is there anything that's in the works to develop a new maintenance shed or shop for our facility?
Actually, we did lose one shed and we repaired the other one. I don't know if you've seen the other one way in the bush. Oh, no. Yeah, no, there's kind of one back into the bush. It's a little bigger. We repaired that one fully functional, just no electricity there. The other one, we do have the components to install it, but I got a quote from someone to install that. It would have been $75,000 minimum. Yes.
I was just gonna say, so how do you make money at the golf course? Is it through tournaments or is it through people who live around there? Because it's a long distance, because if we're urban, to go out there. Oh, and is it also free for Cowessess members to?
Actually, yes, it is free for Cowessess members. They do make an initial membership. The band makes an initial membership for our members. So it's just free to golf. All you have to pay for is your golf carts and whatever rental stuff. But otherwise, most of our clientele comes from the beach people that come every year. I think our membership, when I first got there, was like 12 people. It's actually jumped up to almost 45 now, plus the 4 bands. But it's been increasing over the years every year.
So do you do tournaments with them at all, like to get them more involved?
Actually, we've been doing tournaments from all over the place. I already have one booked with Mosaic for May 25th. They bring out a group of people. We get a lot of large groups that come out and go golfing.
And what about the food there in the kitchen? Does that have anything to do with anything?
Actually, we do okay. Our food is great. Like I think our best customer is Chief and Council. They like,
Can we Uber that? Can we
Yeah.
Uber it?
no, we don't do Uber yet. We do the restaurant ourselves.
Okay, one more question.
I was gonna ask about the restaurant. Is there any plans of having it open more hours or an extended menu, that kind of stuff?
Actually, we already opened the restaurant almost a month ago. No, we've been dining in. We only had 2 people at the start, so we were actually doing dine-in, but it was only from 9 to 2. And then just recently, when this month started, we started going 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, but then we're gonna once we hire more staff, it's gonna be 7 days a week.
Whenever I see a menu online, okay, it says pick up and take out. It doesn't say anything about eat in.
Oh, I'll have to look into that and then we will change it, but it is dine-in and takeout.
Anybody else? Good.
Okay, well, that was pretty much it. Mine and but that's pretty much.
Oh. When are you getting married? Back if you went.
When am I getting married? When hell freezes over. Sorry about that. I know that where that question was coming from. Uncle. Yeah. But actually, you know what? We still are doing improvements in there. Like with our VLTs, we have to do a lounge endorsement with our license. So we have to do minor improvements there. We also have to move our pro shop. Like right now, we were having it in one area. It's got to be separated into 2 areas. That's pretty much, plus with the VLTs, that's pretty much, plus the maintaining of the back 9, still grooming it to be better. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. We actually did purchase, when I got there, we were renting carts every year. Finally, we broke down and purchased our own carts for the golf course. We got 30 brand new carts last year. But anything else? No more questions. You're only allowed 2 questions.
It's silly, but it's like, you know how was it Sherwood Forest is with the campers and that, and they have their regular people come out and golf and stuff. Is there any way we can do something like that there? I'll bring my trailer and set up camp.
Actually,
My
that's an
teepee.
economic development project because we did start one. If anybody's ever been to the golf course and you drive in, there's an open area to the right. They did start an RV parking area there.
And is that just like temporary for that day?
Well, it's still
Or
under,
is it seasonal?
it's still under repairs right now.
One
No
more
electricity
question.
or plumbing.
What are we doing in terms of helping our youth and members of the surrounding communities who are developing youth golf programs? Because I know that my granddaughter participated in a junior golf tournament at Cowessess last year, and it was really a great thing. So, and I know we used to have a really robust high school golf program. Is that something that you're looking at to develop in partnership with the school again, or with any community members?
Actually, last year we had both Zachme and Cowessess having their juniors had a junior program. They had their own people come out and do it. I already got in touch with Zachme. They're coming out again this year, and I'm pretty sure Cowessess will come out again. And I designated one day for them to come out, so they weren't bothering people.
And we just want to say that as you could tell, like with Jake, now with Jamie, is that we're really trying to look at the future and properly resource. Poor Jamie has been a one-person show, right? And so what we're really trying to do is assist him in being able to do better for our members. And that's oftentimes by bringing somebody else in order to be a partner for him. Not that kind of partner. Because we don't want hell to freeze over yet. But so because if we want, once again, if Cowessess in any of our endeavors, if we want to be in the big leagues, we have to be able to have that structure of being in the big leagues. Just like Dodie said, many of I know, looking at Melissa, myself, like that's where we learned our hard work ethic, in terms of customer service, is that we were 15, 16 years old working for the golf course. And that was really in its heyday. And I don't want to say how old I am. Well, I'm 50, I'm going to be 53. So this was in the 80s, and then these women, it was early 90s, I think it was, or late, I don't know. Anyway, around that time, anyway. It was all about our incredible 18-year-old pro golf course that employed our members, that was the shining, beautiful diamond of our nation and what we were known for as Last Oak Golf and Country Club. And we know that we have the ability to bring it back there. And, with Jamie's expertise, as well as bringing on other expertise, that we know that we're going to get there again, but we have to also support that infrastructure. And he's absolutely, honestly, best food around is from the golf course. And, and it's high quality and it's really good food. So even if you come home, come and check out the food because we have excellent cooks as well. And we really are looking at supporting membership through employment, as well as maintaining our good relationships with the members who are the settlers around the area, as well as ourselves. And there is a cost for us as members to utilize the course. There is a cost, and we will be doing the data analysis, which has not really been done before, in terms of how many of our members utilize the course, the frequency, as well as how much of a benefit that is a hidden cost to Cowessess with that, and how members are going, how that's an actually benefit to members. So those are the types of measurements we're going to be starting to take in the future. And we're really excited about the future of the golf course, and to the point of not only just breaking even, and it's actually to regain that incredible the incredible reputation that it had before. And also we are building an RV park, and except it's on top of the hill next to the powwow grounds. And so that is actually in the works, and we expect it to be ready before the powwow. So people will be able to bring their RVs there before the powwow. And while she's standing, if that's all, unless okay.
Actually, we had 658 members go through for golfing.
So it's utilizing that data in order to best benchmark for every year as well. So I would really like for George to ask Jamie another question, please. No, I'm just kidding. So, but one of there was actually a point before I said that. See what happens when I try to be funny. Melissa. I would actually like for you to come over here, please, because Gary is unable to be here. And if that's it for the Last Oak Golf and Country Club, really right now, The POW is August 13, 14, and 15. And it's 150 years of the signing of Treaty 4. So we will be doing extra special events for the time of our powwow. So we're really encouraging everybody to come down, as well as in September, we will be working with some other Treaty 4 bands in order to host the powwow down at Treaty 4 grounds as well this year also. Just very quickly, Cowessess Gas and Grocery 1, we heard Jacob talk about that, and it is a transition process from CVL, and we'll be sitting with Gary in order to oversee and manage the store and working in conjunction with Jake there. But I've called Melissa up here to talk about the electrical vehicle project because she's the one who knows the most about exactly where we're at with it.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Melissa Leroy. I'm the Executive Director out of Cowessess First Nation. Thanks for all showing up today. It's a lovely day. I know you're probably all like me. You'd rather be working on your yard. How come you want me to switch? Much better microphone. Thank you. Apparently, I'm not loud enough. All my teachers were wrong. So in regard to the electrical vehicle project, it's an ongoing project that we have out on Cowessess. It's been ongoing for over a year. So prior to my time, I just started in September. But what it is we've gotten this funding from the Rural Transit Fund for this electric vehicle project. And so we are building a building and we're purchasing electrical vehicles, and the building will be part of where we plug them in. I don't know the technology terms, I'm sorry. But they'll all be EV and they'll all sit in that one big building, and there'll be the charging stations like there are in different places in Regina here. So those vehicles will get charged every night, and they'll be in a shelter because there are some issues with EV vehicles in regards to the extreme cold that we do have here, right? So it'll be an insulated building where they will sit, and it will be located behind the mall down on Cowessess. And that's probably where our peacekeepers will have an office as well, because they will make sure everything's all right with the vehicles and stuff in that building, and with that process with maintenance and et cetera.
We will still be having our fleet of gas vehicles. So there'll be, if in the case in extreme weather, that the EV vehicles don't work, we will still have the gas vehicles that will be able to back up. So there will be no interruption in service with the potential instability of the electrical vehicles.
So if you're building that building back behind the mall there, isn't that where they found all those unmarked graves and that?
No, the short answer is no. And it's just right behind the building, and the graveyard is behind that. And that's another story that we'll bring forward about all the supposed children that were found.
I just got a question about these electrical vehicles here. I work in the automotive industry, and major manufacturers have decided to scrap the electric vehicles because of the cost, and also that it's hard to get replacement batteries due to manufacturers. So is it feasible to keep these electric vehicles? Because it's hard to replace batteries, and I have knowledge that a customer had an electric vehicle sitting at the dealership because he can't get a replacement battery. And it'll cost like thousands and thousands of dollars to get these batteries replaced because manufacturer issues, right? So all the major Ford, GM, Toyota are scrapping this because they're losing money. So I don't think it's feasible to keep these electrical vehicles because of that reason.
Well, what we can say is that this was an initiative before we became chief and council, and that we're just continuing on with the project. And what we also can say is that because it was a government grant, there has been no cost to Cowessess as of yet, and that we are ensuring that the gas vehicles are still up and running, and that we will ensure that programs and services to the people will still be maintained regardless.
I was on the last council term for 5, 6 months at the end of it when this electrical vehicle come on board, when we were found out about it. It's all built by a grant by the government pushing their electrical vehicles to save the fossil fuels. Like Chief Erica said, it's not costing us any money to go through with this grant program. We will get the EVs, and the bonuses, whether they work or not, at the end of the day, we'll have this nice big building to service our community vehicles. So it sounds like it's a pretty sweet deal to me. I don't know if I'm right. Is that how it sounds, right?
Yes.
We are anticipated, we do understand the instability, especially in the prairie. It'd be different if we were in Las Vegas weather, that type, but, and so in anticipation to the instability, as well as when it's the extreme cold happens, the battery usage goes down really, really quickly. So we do understand that. However, like we've all said, it hasn't cost us any money, and we will utilize that initiative and that benefit as long as we can.
I think, so is this working? I think it's free. Okay, so and I think it's a fair question that you ask. I went back to university late in my life. I'm just finishing my environmental studies degree, and the intention of me doing my environmental studies degree is to support that with sound policy and economic development education to help our nation and think about the future. When we're talking about economic development, we have to consider the evolution development of EVs, very much like Ford at the beginning of the 19th century. There have been a lot of iterations of gas-powered vehicles, and they're still here. So there are some concerns with EVs right now, but in terms of the global trend of them, they're growing by over 40% every year, year over year. Electric vehicles are going to be here. In terms of economic development for Cowessess, I think we need to consider new and alternative sources of energy and how we consume and use energy, both from an individual but also industrial and commercial aspect, because we want to leave a good future for our children and for future generations. And the reality is that the oil and gas industry is in its death throes globally. There are very finite resources in terms of oil and gas. And that's the reason why the United Nations and other organizations have started developing green energies, and electric vehicles are a part of that. So I think in terms of our economic development in Cowessess, we also have to look at it not just from a fiscal standpoint, but what are we leaving behind as we leave this earth. So I think at the very least, us having another shed to store things in securely is the least benefit we can get. The best benefit we can get is that we are actually in front of and on top of the development of an emerging trend in energy and energy use, not only in this province, but in this whole world. So I think it's kind of a testament to us and how we think future and forward generationally when we're looking at how we develop and sit in with the industries as the trends evolve. So, it's a very tough question to ask and answer right now. But I think if we have faith in the professionals and the technical development that is occurring in green energy, we can have hope for the future, right?
I think what he was more concerned about is like how long is that lifespan of the battery, and what happens with the battery once it's no longer in use, if we're thinking about the economic part and our future for our kids. Where does those batteries go after?
Right? That's a very fair question, but we're also not asking that very same question to the wind turbine developments that we have partaken in as a nation. Wind turbines up until recently have not been renewable and have not been recyclable. They've been buried underground. So we have to be kind and generous and gentle with how green energy is emerging and how it's evolving, because it is still in development. When it comes to development of electric batteries, this province is actually very heavily focused on rare earth mineral extraction. Rare earth mineral extraction will lead us to have the capabilities to provide the ingredients that are needed for electric vehicles. So then we're not extracting in third world countries where the environmental aspects of that development is questionable, where other indigenous lands are being raped and pillaged improperly, right? So if we're actually in a province that is developing rare earth minerals for the intention of using them in electric vehicle batteries, there'll always be questions and concerns at the beginning of an emerging industry, and we're there right now. So as long as we're asking those questions and technology is helping us find the solutions, the answers, as a committee member, I'm going to continue focusing on the long game on this, and that's leaving a good place for my grandchildren to live and contain themselves in.
We got another question back here.
Actually, it's not a question. It's just a quote that I just remember from one of my indigenous First Nation poems is, "We do not inherit this earth from our ancestors, but borrow it from our children."
Yep. Let's keep our land safe.
Let's just say that if we get 8 months, like just worst case scenario, if in terms of battery usage, even if we got 8 out of the 12 months, worst case scenario, out of the electric vehicles, we're still saving 8 months of that gas and the emissions and everything else.
Looks like about it.
Corey, can you move to the
Okay.
next?
I think that's about it.
What is the next? Okay, so just very quickly, what's next it's our EV, which we just finished talking about. And then lakefront property, we are looking at, and that's something that Gary's exploring right now in terms of a business plan. Not Barry, sorry, Gary. The Bee Gees. They're the Bee Gees. In the lakefront property, as well as we just talked a little bit about the RV park. Last Oak Golf and Country Club, Jamie was very eloquent in speaking to that. And for 4C Farms Limited, the bigger picture, which we'll be getting back, doing our deep dive in. And Gary just wanted to mention is that much of his work right now is about the equipment acquisition, developing capacity, youth involvement, and employability. Next slide, please. Where are we going? Home, hopefully. The next one. So this is our commitment to you, the membership. This is our commitment to the future. As we say, we don't inherit, we borrow it from the children. Is that everything we do will be, we talked about this, the strategic planning aspect of it. And then the structural development within that strategic planning, which is the social enterprise, the immediate direct benefit to our membership with training and employment, cost of goods, those types of things. Corporate exigencies, sorry. Time to go home. What does that mean anyway? Exigence, yeah. Oh my gosh. Look at Mr. $2 million word over there. With the economic growth, and that our CVL will be just for money making and will have certain criteria in order for it to be CVL. And that's all what we're going to be doing with the wealth creation. And like we had said, wealth creation is developing that economic base that we need, economic base in order to be self-sufficient, in order for us to be truly free and sovereign in where we are going as a Cowessess First Nation. And then from all of that is our social aspects and all of those health determinants and all of the other areas that we can assist for those who are our land keepers on reserve, as well as our members who live off reserve. So we're very excited about that, and we expect for our chief strategy officer, as well as Gary as our ECDev coordinator, as well as Jake as our CEO, and the Livelihood Committee, as well as the CVL Board of Directors and the Chief and Council. We will be doing this work in the next few months. Thank you. Usually, Yes. Thank you for schooling me on Urban Dictionary. Brandon picked it up from Urban Dictionary. And then I'm always telling Corey this, please use plain language. That's an example of where we have to use plain language. So take a note, share your ideas and ask questions. What are the top priorities you think the nation should address in the area of livelihood? So if anyone would like to think about this and to write to us, to call us, I know that the trend and always the first call is to the chief. I tell you, I receive 10 to 20 calls and messages a day, and I don't get to all of them back immediately, and that upsets members. You have a working council. You have an incredible council that is very knowledgeable in all of these areas. And if they don't have the knowledge, they know where to go and get the knowledge. So please, it's not just the chief. We are a complete team. And so feel free to call our council because they want to hear from you. They want to be part of discussing these issues with our nation's members. So it's not just the chief, it's our whole team. And we truly are a team and we contemplate everything together. So call the council, bottom line, as well. And do we have a complete list? I know, Corey, you did have a list of the counselors responsible for the different areas. Six 1-306-696-2520.
If you go on the band page too, on the website, all our contact information's on there, right? Or but cowessessfn.com. Pretty sure, right, Corey? All our contact information's on there.
That's the wrong one, Corey. Okay, we'll put it up. We'll put it up. But for today, the ones that are the counselors in the area responsible for the for livelihood, it is counselors Malcolm, Curtis, and Brandon.
You have to say it all over again.
What was I doing yelling at people? Use the microphone. And I'm not using the microphone. Yeah, so just to reiterate, and for folks online, that if you need to get a hold of one of the counselors, or if you have some information or anything like that, you can please leave a message on Facebook at Cowessess First Nation. That message comes directly to me, your communications director. And I'm trying to use my Ronnie radio voice here. We're meeting on Sunday. No, if you if you message the Facebook page, Cowessess First Nation, that message comes to me. I usually forward on to whoever department director, counselor, chief, whoever that message is more directed for. And I try to assist as best that I can there. You can also message the website at cowessessfn.com. Go to the contact page, fill out the form that comes directly to me. And there's another email up there, communications.central.cowessess or communications.central@cowessessfn.com. That also comes to me. So there's multiple different ways that you can get a hold of me, or one of your counselors. If you want to pass your information off to me, I can forward it off to someone in leadership or in one of the directors in one of the departments. And if you want to say, hey, good job, Corey, you can leave that too.
And the council liked to tease me, so they just wanted to I have a hybrid. And that didn't save me from both having electricity as well as gas. The other night after our education, I missed our gas station by 10 minutes. And didn't have any electricity on the hybrid, and I didn't have any gas. And I ran out of both, and Councillor Brandon had to come and save me with his can of gas from last year. His year-old lawnmower gas, which had me able to get up the hill home. So it does, at the end of the day, we still have to be smart about whether it's electrical or gas at the end of the day.
Okay, 5 o'clock, Carol said. Yep. So go ahead. So we're going to do the draw.
The draw, but before we go, I just want to thank you all for your patience, your input. We are always here to listen to what you need to say. Once again, text messages, emails, phones, and that we're all part of the same team and we all share. So please feel free to call any one of us.
I was just inquiring over the number of years and never got a response back yet to what's happening with our land west of IPSCO there, where the teepee's set up and the chains are on and the locks on, and that's our land. It's free rent for me. And I'm just wondering what we're going to do about that land.
Is that ours?
Okay, I'm going to answer on behalf of our team here. Is that we actually we've asked for staff to look into that because it came to our attention that there is no formal agreement. And to your point, no other Cowessess person gets free rent. And why does a non-band member get free rent on Cowessess land? We are investigating it and we are looking at it in terms of the agreement. And if there is no agreement, how to best utilize that for Cowessess.
Good. Okay. Now that you know who else? That's it. Okay, that's it.